Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching second and final part of What If Naruto Learned Demon God Slaying Magic. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
The following day, everyone was a little worn out after Fairy Tail's enormous celebration to welcome the newest member of their ever-expanding family. In the end, Naruto, Q, and Urza slept in the dining pavilion with the others. Q draped her tails over herself and Naruto, while Urza used Naruto as a pillow, his tail encircling Urza like a cocoon. Overall, it had a quite adorable appearance. Makarov said, "All right, everyone, get up, we have work to do." Everyone began to rise, and there were many moans. A few remained on the ground, moaning about having a hangover. Gently, Naruto urged Q and Urza to awaken. They were trying to fall asleep by snuggling closer to his chest while murmuring in protest. He told them, "Please, it's time to get up. The master will be upset if we don't." Despite their reluctance, they both sigh and stand up. They all begin stretching as soon as they wake up in order to increase blood flow. After finishing that, they retire to their rooms to change into fresh clothing and take a bath. Everything appears the same as it did before yesterday's party when they return to the main hall. "Well, at least we know how to fix things almost as fast as we break them," Naruto murmurs. The teacher approaches Naruto and asks, "Well, young one, are you ready?" To him, he replies, "I guess. Alright, then I will get some food and then head out back." He replies to him. Naruto cheerfully tells him, "Alright," while he prepares meals for everyone. Since Q was unsure of how to use the silver, Naruto had to feed her. The other members of the group found Naruto's lack of a good big brother to be adorable. After eating, they all went out back. In comparison to yesterday, they witnessed a sizable crowd of guild members. The trio located other members in their age group and approached them. Natsu inquired, "Are you going to watch me battle guild arts today, Naruto?" He told him, "Yes, I will, Natsu, but this is a friendly fight." Urza told him, "Yes, and I don't want to have to remind you not to kill him." He told her, "I swear, if I can avoid it, I will not aim for any vitals." "You are going to want to go all out. He is the strongest in the guild besides the master," Mirajane told him. "Yes, but if I go all out no matter who it is they will be mortally wounded, even the master. That is why I have to not aim like I normally would," she replied to Naruto. "You're not serious," she told him. "Yes, he is. All demons and demon slayers are trained to aim for the kill," Q replies to her. But still, Mirajane attempted to protest, but after giving it some thought, she realized that she could easily compete with some of the other guild members, but Naruto was able to destroy her as if she were a helpless child up against a pack of wolves. Urza told him, "Okay, but keep in mind that he is also testing you, so don't lose your mind." After saying, "All right," and embracing her, Naruto turns to Q. He enters the training area's center and waits. Gildarts and the master emerge a few minutes later. Waving his arm, he exclaims, "Yo kid," with joy. "Hello, are you ready?" Naruto smiles and asks him. "I guess remember this is a spar to test you, so it will last 5 minutes. After that we will stop and the master will assess what you did," he remarked with seriousness to Naruto. Naruto drops down on all fours and says, "Okay, then whenever you are ready." As he assumes a fighting position, he remarks, "An animal stance, maybe I should teach you hand-to-hand combat." With a red magic circle emerging beneath him, Naruto declares, "I will not hold back on you knowing that the master says that you are the strongest." Gildarts murmurs, "Well then," as he gives Naruto a stern look. Third Tail Naruto, wearing the Demon Slayer Biju cloak, snarled as he was encased in red chakra. Mirajane murmurs, "He is going into Third Tail right off the bat." "Yes, he is not taking him lightly because he knows how powerful he is," she replied to Urza. Naruto growls, "Here I come," and vanishes in a red blur. As he blocks Naruto's clawed arm, Gildarts remarks cheerfully, "You're a pretty quick little guy." He then leaps away from Naruto as his flesh begins to burn. With a smile on his face, he waves his heating hand and remarks, "Well, that's interesting. Your armor is not a good thing to block either." "Oh crap," Makarov said as he squeezed the bridge of his nose. "What is the matter, master? You don't seem like one to curse unless it is necessary." Urza is perplexed. He told her that Gildarts was suddenly interested in the fight. Urza queries, "Why exactly is this a bad thing?" He began to ramble on about the repairs he would need to make to his guild, saying, "Well, the problem with him is that he has horrible control over his magic, so if he uses it," he remarks, "That's not good," as he watches Gildarts begin to use his crash magic. Naruto continues to dodge, but it is becoming more difficult. He attempted to stop the first one, but the damn thing quickly began tearing his arm cloak. When a magic seal materialized in front of Naruto's face, he thought, "Okay, then try this." A dark ball erupts from Naruto's mouth as he cries, "By G-Bomb," at Gildarts. When he strikes it with crash magic, it explodes, producing a massive smokescreen. "Smart," he murmurs, beginning to search for the boy. Fourth Tail Demon Slayer Magic Naruto snarls as a dark energy column envelops him. Gildarts murmurs, "What the?" when he senses the boy's sinister vibe. He murmurs in a startled voice, "This is unbelievable, he is radiating such a lethal aura." Naruto, who has just woken up, lets out a low growl. "Oh. You are all aware of his appearance when he transforms into a four-tail." Naruto swings his claws in a lunge at Gildarts. He avoids the attack by blocking it, but then something happened that he was unaware of. He flew into the tree line after being slashed by another Naruto that sprang from the claw. Astonished by her friend's seer power, Urza remarked, "So this is what happens when Naruto doesn't hold back." Q asks, "Naruto.ni, why are you holding back?" Which is entirely at odds with her initial thoughts. He told Urza, "I don't want to kill, and neither does he, so no all. Out." She tells her, but she is taken aback. She had a long way to go, and the crazed blonde was still holding back. Gildarts remarks, "That was a good hit, kid," from behind the debris of the downed trees. He declares, "Now it's my turn," as the trees erupt above him, revealing him standing unharmed in the center of the blast. Gray begins to tremble in his chair and asks, "How is it possible to have that much power?" Naruto screams as a Biju bomb materializes in front of his face. He swallows it as it compresses. Gildarts murmurs, "What are you doing this time?" as he raises a hand to cast his crash magic. With a loud boom, Naruto swells up and launches a bomb out of his mouth. Gildarts utters the word, "Shit," while hurling a wave of crash magic at the projectile, only to be disregarded when it is hurled at him. He nearly dodges it by jumping to the side. After passing through the woodland for a little time, the bomb made a popping sound. Everyone turned to watch what appeared to be a nuclear weapon explode, followed by a massive shockwave that knocked everyone off their feet, with the exception of Naruto, who supported himself with his tails. When they sat up, everyone had the same thought, "Holy shit." Naruto then switched back to wearing a two-tail cloak. He panted and remarked, "That took a lot more than I thought." As he came at Naruto, his fist knocked back to hit him, he exclaimed, "Well, I will be damned, kid, that was one hell of an attack, but this is the end." Just as he struck Naruto, he vanished into thin air. Gildarts muttered, "What?" and shifted into a defensive stance. As though he were everywhere, Naruto remarked, "Each tail has a different ability that it specializes in, and this one is speed." 10 Narutos are running around him, creating a circle of sand, when Gildarts turns to look behind him. As a white energy column surrounds him, Gildarts asked, "So, are you just going to keep running laps or are you going to come at me, kid?" "As you wish," is Naruto's cry as he emerges before him, poised to use his left hand to claw him. Gildarts screams, "Nice try," and kicks Naruto in the chest, causing him to stumble. He then throws Naruto backwards with a palm to his chest after firing a blast of crash magic at him, destroying his cloak. Everyone is shocked by the sudden turn of events as Naruto is pushed back. As he settles back into a comfortable posture, Gildarts murmurs, "Well, that's that." Gray muttered, "How did he do that?" Urza told him, "He was holding back." Q exclaimed in surprise that a demon slayer could be defeated so simply. Was he really just that strong that he was able to hold back? Well, I think that in terms of power Naruto was close to Gildarts and Naruto's control was better, but the fact is that Gildarts has far more experience than Naruto and that was the deciding factor, Makarov stated. "That hurt," Naruto muttered as he began to stand up but collapsed again. Urza screams, "Naruto," and rushes to his side. He tells her, "Don't worry, I'm just a little tired from using my magic so much." Makarov chastises Naruto, saying, "It is never good to scare a woman." He glances at Urza and says, "Right, sorry, Gigi." "Sorry Urza, I didn't mean to scare you, I just went a little overboard, that's all. A little bit of sleep and I will be fine." He replies to her. She simply gives the blonde a hug and nods. She mentally tells him, "You idiot, if you ever scare me like that again, I will personally beat the hell out of you." As he faints, she whispers to him, "I promise I won't do it again." Well, I have to say he is good and easily will be a S-rank mage in a few months. All that he is lacking is experience. Gildarts tells them. Urza said, "So he passed?" He smiles and tells her, "Yes, he passed. He just needs to go on some more missions and he will be a great mage." Makarov smiles and adds, "Okay, he will be admitted as a S-ranked mage when during his birthday." Urza said him, "But we don't know when our birthdays are." After a moment of sadness, he got an idea. "Alright then, how about the day that you two joined Fairy Tail will be the date of your birth? Think of it like it was the birthday for the two of you into a new life," he told her. She tells him, I would like that and I know Naruto will like it too. Alright then, well, it is September now, so on October 10th you will have the party and get your payment, he tells her. With a small bow and a smile, she responds, thank you, master. Alright, well, you might want to get him to bed now so he can rest up again, she heard him say. After saying, I will, to him, Urza enters the building. Everyone in the vicinity nods in agreement as Gildart states, those two will make a very dangerous team when they grow up. With Naruto and Urza after escorting Naruto back to their room, Urza saw Q was already waiting for them. Hello Q. Urza greets the girl. She says to us, hello Urza. Nichan, could you and Naruto please come over here? Okay, Urza says, a little perplexed. She noticed that it was Q's tails as she reached the side of the bed and felt something around both her and Naruto. What that was the final thing she said before she and him were encased in her tail cocoon. When Urza saw how near Naruto's face was to her own, she blushed and exclaimed, Q, what are you doing? With a mischievous grin, Q remarked, I know you enjoy this anyhow, and he heals faster the closer he is to you. As she feels pressed closer to him, she stammers, www, what are you talking about? Q smiles and tells her, you like being close to the one that marked you and you are not allowed to deny it. Urza muttered, but, no buts, you like him and I will make sure that my brother is happy, she replies to her. Urza said, I don't have a say in this. She made her tails wrap tighter around her head and added, yes, of course you do. But we both know the answer. If you can say it to his face that you don't love him, then I will let you go. Urza murmurs, I can't. He is the closest person to be. That's what I thought. Now just enjoy one another's company and have a good rest, she told her. As her thoughts began to guide her in the direction Q was stating, Urza thought, stupid Q, Naruto is just a close friend. That saved me and is the only one I trusted and I don't think that I could live without. Urza muttered, don't I love him? Q grinned when he heard it. She said to her, told you now, have a good sleep. Urza closed her eyes to sleep alongside the crazy blonde she loved, but all she could do was nod. 6 years have passed and Naruto is now between the ages of 12 and 13. I believe they were this age when Mirajane's sister passed away. When Gray sees Naruto enter the guild, he yells, Naruto, how has it been? It's been alright. How have you and Natsu been getting along? He inquires. Like usual, can't stand the other but can get along well enough when we need to, he told him. With his trademark smile, Naruto told him, that's good, because at least you care about each other when things go wrong. Well, I hope we can go on another mission soon because I'm running low on money. Okay, no problem, me and Urza were going to be going on a mission soon, he said to him. Gray went pale at once. You know what, I don't think that I need money right now, I'm good for another month, he said to him, perspiring profusely. Like hell I'm going with you when Urza didn't invite me the last time I did that. Me and her had a little talk and I couldn't go near you without seeing her face right behind you, Gray thought, but he laughed nervously. Naruto, where are you? Urza's voice boomed through the halls, and Naruto grinned foolishly while everyone else in the guild was screaming, why? Big brother, where are you? We're going on a mission now, Q yelled, and, oh, I'm coming, Naruto exclaimed joyfully as he walked out to meet them. As he left the guild to meet them, Urza said, there you are. Sorry, Urza. Chan, but I got caught up, he said to her. Let's get going. It looks like Mirajane and her siblings have been given bad information about the monster that they are hunting, and the master wants us to catch up to them before they get to the monster, Urza said to him. Why is that? Naruto asked her. Because the monster has a hidden secret that was discovered recently, she said as she began to walk. And what would this be? Naruto asked her. When someone tries to take them over, they put them into a blind rage and make them become part of their pack. This thing is their worst enemy to face, she told him. Alright, let's get a hustling then, he said to her. Alright, she says to him, noticing his new attire. You look different, Urza said, and that's true, he replied, looking down at his sleeveless trench coat, which was crimson with black flames at the bottom and had a hood added to conceal his ears. He was also wearing an orange shirt with a swirl in the middle, and, finally, he had black pants and sandals, as usual. Q told him, yep, you look different, brother. Well, the same can be said about you, Q, he said to her. Urza was still wearing her regular armor, which included a skirt and knee-high black boots, and she was dressed in a white shirt with claw marks scattered all over it. Well, now that we are done checking one another out, shouldn't we hurry up and save Mirajane's ass? Q asked. I guess you are right, but I am a little bit worried that Mirajane rubbed off on you a little bit, Naruto said to her, recalling the young girl who had never used foul language and now was a mix of him and Mira. She said, I'll be fine now, and we should be moving on to saving the takeover siblings. Agreed, Naruto replied to her. All right, the quickest way will be to take a train there, and we'll be able to assist them by nightfall, Urza said. All right, then let's get going, you too, Naruto said as he began to walk off in the wrong direction. Come on, Urza said, taking his hand and guiding him in the correct direction. Train station. As the train arrived, Naruto asked, all right, are you two ready? Hugh replied, you bet we are, and Urza simply nodded. The group arrived without any issues, primarily because Urza was holding Naruto's hand and dragging him there. All right, we are finally here, now let's get going, Hugh said to them. All right, we have 4 hours before we are where we need to be, so let's get some planning done, Hugh said, and agreed, as she produced a piece of paper with the monster and information on it. Okay, so from what we have read, it has high defense speed and power, but it has low intelligence, Naruto murmured. That is right. Now we need to find a way to take it out or get Mirajane and her siblings out of there, Urza stated. If need be I can use Six Tail and kill it, but I would rather not use it until my body catches up with the demonic energy needed for it, Naruto replied. I told you that after you turn 18 you will be able to use your power with no drawbacks, but until then you have to wait, Hugh replied to him. Naruto complained, I know, but it's annoying that I have to wait now to get stronger, you know. I know, don't worry, but it will be better when you are 18 and you can be a demon, Hugh said cheerfully. Okay, fine, I will wait, Naruto said, and speaking of waiting, how close are we? We are about an hour away still, and we will be there soon enough, Naruto, just hold on. All right, Urza said to him. All right, Urza, he said to her as he placed his head on her lap and fell asleep, not realizing that Urza was blushing but grinning as she began to gently stroke his hair. Hugh looks out the window and shrugs, saying, well, we will be there soon, Enuf. After an hour Urza nudged Naruto awake, and he nodded drowsily as he sat up and stretched out. Yay, we here, Hugh exclaimed joyfully as she leapt up and down when the train began to slow down. Even though she acts tougher, she is still a kid sometimes, isn't she, Urza? Naruto said to her joyfully, that she is. Naruto, now let's get ready to save Mira. All right, Naruto said to the group, we find a little inn that has a big enough room for us and the luggage, mainly Urza's, and then we go and look for Mira and her siblings. Agreed, Urza said as they began walking into town after getting off the train and gathering Urza's enormous amount of luggage. Urza asks us, well, how are we going to locate them? Let's see, Hugh. You smell better than I do, so try to locate her by sending. We'll be looking normally as well. All right, that sounds good, we will search the north end while you search the south end, Urza tells Naruto, gesturing toward Q. Go with Q, and I will look the other way from you, and we will contact the other when we found them via telepathy link, Naruto adds to the two. Understood, is Naruto's response as he leaps up atop the buildings and speeds through the town. Q tells Urza, all right, let's go ourselves. Urza nods and they flee in different directions. When she asks people what they know, some of them recall the siblings. It seems that most of them are women who were aided by her from perverts. Yes, I remember her, she says, kicking a man so hard in the balls that she left a steaming footprint there. The woman smiled and said, she was such a nice girl helping us get rid of the perverts in our village. Urza nods to the woman, still perspiring, and asks again, do you know where she went? Oh right, sorry, she and her siblings went into the forest a little over an hour ago, if I remember correctly, she said. As she began to leave, Urza said, thank you very much. Q, we have a lead, Urza called, and she bounded over to her with a serious expression. All right, Naruto, we have a lead, how fast can you get to us? Urza asked him via telepathic link. A few seconds, he said hack to her, and a few seconds later he blurred right in front of her. All right, let's go and save Mira and her siblings, Naruto said to them, and they nodded before Urza led them toward the forest. Well, how are we going to fight it? Naruto asked. Well, I was thinking that you two would distract the thing while I got them out of there, Q said to them. And Naruto, I want you to not hold back on this thing if it tries to harm anyone of the guild, she said to him. And Naruto, I want you to not hold back on this thing if it tries to harm anyone of the guild, she said. Do you really mean it? I don't want people to get into trouble for me to use it, but I also want to go all out, Naruto said cheerfully as he began to think. Urza says, we really need to find a way for him to get out all that energy someday. Q responds, oh, I already know one way, as she begins to giggle perversely. Urza blushes profusely as images begin to flash through her mind. Okay, well, we have a plan, so let's get going, Naruto tells them. Okay, Q lead the way and track them, and me and Naruto will be getting ready, Urza says, resuming command. Right, they say in unsent, and they all begin running into the forest while Q sniffs around for Mirajane's scent. After 2 hours, it's already nighttime and we don't know where they are, Q retorts in frustration. Don't give up, Q, we can find them, we just need a lead, Naruto tells his sister. Alright, we should go to the mountain so we can get an overlook of the area, Urza tells them. Good idea, Urza. Okay, hold on, Naruto says to her as he wraps his right arm and tail around her, while Q wraps her tail around him. He leaps through the trees at a high speed to reach the mountain. God, your unlimited stamina is ridiculous, bro, Q tells Naruto. Thanks, Q, Naruto tells her, continuing the breakneck pace. They reach the mountain after a few minutes, and Naruto begins to hop up the cliffside with ease. Q stiffens and her eyes widen in shock as Naruto reaches about halfway up the mountain. Bro, I smell them, they're at the top of the mountain, she yells to him. Okay, then double time, he responds to her as he begins to pick up speed. When they reach the top, Naruto puts them down, and they begin to tremble a little from the abrupt drop in speed. When they reach a clearing, Mira-Jane and her sister Lisana are running from a giant ogre thing. Mira! Naruto yells as everyone jumps down just in time to see Mira and her sister backed into a corner. Naruto! Mira yells in a voice that was simultaneously confused and hopeful. Alright, Q, quick, point the way, Naruto says to her. This way, she yells, and they begin to run. As he approaches her and her sister, he asks, is this the monster that you were sent to kill? Yes, but that is not the monster, it's my brother, she screams. Wait, what? He cries, glancing at the creature that was peering down at them. As he saw the monster or elfman charging at them, Naruto asked, is there any way to make him calm down? Mira explained in a hurried voice, it's elfman, he tried to take it over but it was stronger than him. You have to knock him out, that is the best way, she yelled, and Lisana yelled to her brother. Elfman, calm down please. The monster seemed to hear her, and it began to shake as if Elfman was beginning to gain control. She smiled at him and waited for him. She asks him in a sweet voice, come on, let's go back to the guild, okay? Elfman lowers his arms, but then his eyes light up and he lets out a roar of rage. Naruto thinks quickly, activates his level 3 tail, and rushes at Lisana, swinging at her before he hugs her and takes the blow for her. Naruto! Urza screams. He says to her telepathically, I'm fine, just attack him and knock him out. I'm not having a guild member die. She sighs with relief that Naruto is okay as she equips her twin blades and charges at the monster, which swings wildly and destroys everything it touches, but despite its strength and speed, it is unable to direct it at Urza because she keeps dodging the attacks. Naruto returns in his one-tail state, with steam emanating from him as his skin heals from the impact. As he watches Urza battle the monster, Naruto remarks, okay, he hits hard. He turns to see Q over Lisana and Mira using her demonic magic to heal their wounds, and Urza runs at Elfman, slashing his legs in an attempt to incapacitate him, but he continues to charge as if he had never been hit. Urza, get back, I'm going all out so that I can knock him out, he is dense enough for it, Naruto yells to her, and she nods as she leaps away, while a huge magic circle appears beneath Naruto. Magic used by demon slayers. Biju Cloak 6 Tails. After he yells that, a giant coelom of demonic energy surges out of Naruto. Holy hell, murmurs Mira as she observes the power on display. And just think, he still has 3 more levels, and if Dad was right he could be able to use perfect fusion, Q tells her proudly. What's that? Urza asks, intrigued by the possibility. Well, perfect fusion is when he is able to balance his demonic and slayer magic equally and at the same time. The result is tremendous power to be able to go blow for blow with a demon king, Q says to her. As she licks her lips, Mira remarks, damn, Naruto just gets more and more interesting. Don't even think about it, Mira, he is mine. Oh, so you are taking dibs on him, are you? She asks in jest. He is my mate and he even said I am the person that he feels the closest to, Urza tells her. Guys, as fascinating as this argument is, I think that you will want to pay attention to this, Q tells them, and they both give her a perplexed look before turning to face Naruto. Rahhhhh, he yells, sending a shockwave at Elfman that sends him flying, and then he shoots at him like a rocket, leaving a crater where he was. Elfman swings at him and misses terrible. Urza murmurs, this is one-sided. Q tells her, thank God for that, the last time he lost control for a minute and literally vaporized a mountain. Well, you did say he could go all out, and when he can think rationally with that much power it was a no-brainer that he could do this. Still, Mira murmurs as Elfman is literally lifted off the ground and thrown around. Well, he is holding back so he doesn't kill him, Q adds. Naruto slams Elfman into the ground, creating a crater. Urza asks him telepathically, not yet, he is a lot denser and stronger now than before, he just is slow. Just how strong is he? Mira and Lasana ask, their jaws in the ground and their eyes as wide as dinner plates. As Naruto released his spell, he said, "Alright, I think that did it." "Good now Letsa." Urza began to say, but as soon as she saw Elfman standing up, she screamed, "Naruto, watch out," and she tackled him to the ground just before he hit them. "How is he still?" continues, "I hit him with enough force to knock out Gildarts," Naruto yelled, grabbing Urza by the tail. "I don't know, but I think that we might have to cripple him to knock him out, or we have to drain his magic," Urza muttered. Naruto stiffens at the thought and begins to tremble a little. Urza tells him, "I know I'm asking a lot, but we might need you to use your seven-tail form. But you know why I can feel them losing strength as if it were me, and it scares the hell out of me, Urza," he says to him in a whisper. "Don't worry, Naruto, it will be fine, you will stop because it is your friend," Urza assures him. "Alright, Urza, if you say so," he whispers. "Guys, whatever you are planning on doing, do it soon because he is charging at us," Mira yelled to us. Naruto sighs and turns to face the group, looking sorrowful. "Alright, but please don't hate me after this," he says gently, and they all stare at him bewildered as he goes back to face Elfman. Biju Cloak Tail 7 Naruto cries as a massive column of energy surrounds him. Naruto is on all fours and the size of the guild when the black energy subsides. What really frightens them is that he is entirely composed of bone, with dark red chakra oozing from the bones. "Rahhhhh," he yells as he lunges at Elfman, who tries to attack but is restrained by 5 of Naruto's bone tails that wrap around his arms, legs, and neck. "What is he doing to Elfman?" asks Mira in panic. "He is sucking out his magic, so he is forced to become human again," Urza says sadly. "What?" Mira whispers. "Look at the wound that he should have and you will understand, Mira," Q says to her, confused but following instructions, and she notices that where Elfman was stabbed, there was no blood coming out but blue energy leaking out. Despite his struggles, Naruto remains firm as he presses his claws into his chest. "Sorry," Q says. She never wanted to see him like that again, but it was the only thing that would stop Elfman as he was now. Urza explains, "Naruto hates this form because it will literally kill you from sucking out all of your magic, but if he continues after the magic is gone, he starts to steal your life force and he feels you dying." She recalls the first time he used the form, when the two of them were trapped in their room for 3 days, with him not letting her leave out of sheer terror. Elfman screamed in agony for 3 minutes while his magic was being drained, and Naruto became anxious. He then began to shrink and released his claws, and after a minute, he transformed back into Elfman with a large stitch scar over his right eye. Naruto then returned to his normal self, his eyes a little darker. Urza noticed this and approached him, giving him a hug and whispering, "Don't worry Naruto, you saved him and thank you for that." As she led him to the group, he whispered back to her, "Thanks Urza." With concern in their eyes, Mirajane and Lasana were already with their brother. "Don't worry, after a good night's sleep and a few days of rest, he will be back to normal again," Naruto said to them, and they both sighed in relief. "Let's get to the inn and head home tomorrow. I need to leave here soon," Naruto mumbled. Everyone stared at him sadly, but then they were taken by surprise when Urza took his hand and began to lead him back to town. "Let's go, Naruto," she said to him as they walked back to town, and everyone shrugged and followed them, wondering why Urza was still holding Naruto's hand. Returning to the inn, then he heard metal hitting the floor and thin arms gently encircling him. "Naruto, don't worry about it, you saved him and Elfman is back to normal, just tired, nothing bad happened. Powers are only bad if you make them out to be," Urza said to him in a quiet voice. Naruto remained silent and leaned closer to Urza for the comfort she created for him. "Urza?" Naruto whispered as he turned to face her. Naruto was curled up in a ball on the bed, shivering slightly at using his 7-tailed mode once more. "Yes," she responds in a soft voice, "please don't leave me," and she simply smiles at him and wipes the tears away. "I will never," she tells him warmly. "Thank you for always being there for me," Naruto says as he licks her cheek and nuzzles into the crook of her neck while shakily wrapping his arms around her. "I know that you were the right choice," he whispers as he drifts into unconsciousness. "I know that you were the right choice." Urza blushes even more at the remark, knowing that he meant to be mates with her, but she smiles joyfully to be with him. He was a kind and gentle person, but his appearance and strength made things difficult for him. "Naruto, I swear that I will be with you forever. I don't know if you know this or if you know these feelings that you make me feel, Buddha. Naruto, I do love you," she whispers to him, kissing his cheek, causing him to stir slightly as she falls asleep in his embrace. He yearned for, needed, and craved love and affection just as much as he did his ramen, but people couldn't see past his gentle soul. The following morning, the sleeping couple didn't realize that 3 pairs of eyes were watching them with evil glints. Q, her sister Lasana, and Mirajane. Damn you Urza, you're lucky you got him. Q thought as she looked at Urza with envy, they look so cute, I can't wait to tease them when we get back to the guild. Lasana thought with a perverted giggle. Yay, my brother and sister are even closer now. Q thought cheerfully while considering whether or not to join them in bed. A few minutes later, he felt Urza begin to stir. He moved his tail around her, earning a warm smile from her at the familiar feeling. Urza, wake up, everyone is up. Naruto said to her telepathically. He sniffed them and opened his eyes slightly to see the three girls all outside of his and Urza's room. He smiled a little at the idea of playing a practical joke on them, but changed his mind because he was enjoying himself in Urza's arms. As he licked her nose, Naruto said, please wake up, we have to leave. She blinked a few times and stiffened at the sudden wetness on her nose. Morning Urza, Naruto said cheerfully, her cheeks flushed from the intimacy between them. Morning to you to Naruto, she muttered as she stood up, looking around and finding her armor on the floor. When she looked out the door, she saw that the other girls were still staring at her with the same evil glint in their eyes, but now they were all giggling perverted. Kyaa, she screamed as she threw her armor at the door, and the three go bug-eyed as they slammed the door shut to protect themselves. Urza wiped around to look at Naruto, her eyes glaring daggers at him, and she said in a dark voice, you heard nothing, understood. Naruto nodded his head quickly so as not to feel her wrath. This was likely the first and only time Naruto had ever seen a girl. As she finished changing without incident, she turned to face Naruto and said, alright Naruto, I'm Donya Changaing. Urza was blushing profusely as she got dressed, hoping that he wouldn't turn around, even though she knew that he would not do anything if she asked him to because he cared for her too much. Good, now close your eyes and turn around, I am going to get change, she said, and Naruto simply followed her instructions without vocally thanking her for staying by his side. When she did, she saw Naruto changing himself without his shirt on. Naruto! She yelled at him. Yes, he replied, turning to face her with his eyes still closed. Urza gave him a small smile, knowing that he was following her instructions, and then her gaze strayed to his chest, where she once more saw the scars. The thought of what those people had done to him based only on his appearance made her feel terrible. As she reached for her armor, she thought, why can't people just look past his looks to see his true self? Just get dressed, she said to him, and Naruto nodded and grinned slightly at what he heard Urza say, remembering to close the link to think that. He changed into a dark orange t-shirt and black baggy jeans, and he put on a dark red trench coat that replaced his old cloak because he had grown. The trench coat had a hood and a design of Kyuubi howling while his 9 tails wiped around behind him. Are you ready to go, demon of fairy tale? Urza asks him, grinning slightly. They both chuckle a little as they leave the house, where they are met by Mira, Lasana, Q, and, surprisingly, Elfman. Elfman, do you think that you should be walking so soon? Naruto asks him in a worried tone. You don't need to worry about me, I am alright, but he responds in a neutral tone, but Naruto can sense the animosity in his voice. Okay, if you feel up to moving around yourself, let's get home, Naruto said joyfully, and everyone nodded at the suggestion before following him out the door. Wait, why are we following him? They all yelled together, causing Naruto to cry anime tears. But I know where it is this time, Naruto complained. Naruto, that is the way to the guild. That was a half-day trip by train. We have to go there first and get us to the guild that way, Urza explained to him, and he nodded in understanding. Now follow me, she said, grabbing his sleeve and dragging him along with her to the train station. Urza tells the group, hurry up, I want to get back to the guild by nightfall today. They blink a few times before feeling a cold grip on their spins as she looks back at them with the Grim Reaper's stare. Get moving, she says in a cold voice, and everyone dashes toward them. Mirajane knew she was stronger than Urza as long as she didn't go psychotic on her, but when she looked at her like that, it scared her. They began following Urza again and arrived at the train station to get tickets to return home. Let's go home everyone, Urza says as she enters the train, followed by Naruto and Q. The takeover siblings follow them back to the train, where they all sit down and wait for it to start and take them home. Naruto was the only one who was not affected by her glare for 2 reasons. First, he was sometimes ignorant as hell, and second, he loved her too much to believe she would actually hurt him. Q yawned and rested her head on her brother's lap before falling asleep. Naruto simply grinned at her while he wrapped his tail around her like a blanket and gently combed her hair. You are a very caring brother, Lasana said with a wide smile, and Naruto returned the smile. The group spent the remainder of their journey back to the guild discussing unimportant topics, and after a half-day of idle chatter, everyone was starting to get a little crazy toward the end of the trip, Naruto more than anyone else. About halfway through the journey, Urza and Naruto fell asleep. Urza on Naruto's shoulder and Naruto on her head. The takeover siblings debated whether to let them sleep or make a good joke out of it, but they decided to let them sleep because they knew how angry Urza gets and didn't want to see Naruto upset. They played a game of rock, paper, scissors to see who had to wake them up, and Mira lost and was regretting it terribly. "Guys, wake up, it's our stop," she said to the group, starting with Naruto because, fortunately, he seemed to be the least likely of the three to lose his mind from being woken up. "Hello," he mumbled as he yawned, and, "Good now that you are up, can you get these two up?" she said, pointing to Q, who was clinging to his leg like a teddy bear, and Urza, who was unconsciously latched onto his arm while she was sleeping. He muttered, "All right, Mira," and began to try to wake them up. Urza woke up without much trouble, save for glaring at the takeover siblings, promising them pain if they spoke about what they saw. Q, on the other hand, was growling at Naruto every time he tried to wake her up, indicating that she was upset about sleeping without her brother, or as she liked to call him, her teddy bear. "All right, then I will just carry you like this," Naruto said, wrapping his tail completely around her and placing her in his arms after pried her off his leg. She immediately began to cling to his jacket. "All right, then let's just get to the guild and hopefully Q will wake up," Urza said as she sat up. They all shrugged as they disembarked from the train and picked up their bags. Most of the people in the town had eyes the size of dinner plates because of two things. First, the enormous amount of luggage Urza was carrying behind her as if it were weightless, and second, the alleged demon of fairy tale was guiding a young girl through the streets. While some were concerned about the girl, the majority knew that she was his younger sister and that if they attempted to remove her from him, Q herself would whip them through a wall. Note to all: never wake her up while she is sleeping. It's for your own safety. "Well, are you all ready to go get the mission complete?" Naruto asked the group as they arrived at the guild and stood outside the doors. "You have no idea," Mira remarked as she approached the doors. After saving the takeover siblings from their own brother's outburst after attempting to overthrow the monster they battled, we finally left our group at the front of Fairy Tail. "Okay, let's go back home," Naruto said joyfully as he entered the building, and as soon as they did, the entire guild rushed them. "You're okay," they all screamed joyfully. Naruto attempted to alert them to Q's dormancy, but it was somewhat too late because a dark aura surrounded the sleeping demon. "Who woke me up?" she growled, causing everyone to start backing up in terror. "Hey guys, good morning," was Natsu's greeting as he entered the guild grinning broadly. "Natsu," was exclaimed by everyone simultaneously, and Q glared at him. At Sue," she screamed as she lunged for the young kid. "She doesn't have a lot of thinking when she is tired, does she?" Naruto inquired Urza. "No, she doesn't, but because this is the only instance in which it wasn't his fault, I believe we should save him," Urza replied. After nodding, Naruto went to the bar, where a piece of chocolate cake was already waiting for him. "Thank you," he said, turning back to Q, who was smashing every table in the guild with Natsu as a hammer. "Q, if you don't put him down, I will eat this cake without you," Naruto yelled loudly enough for her to hear. "Is it chocolate?" she said softly, "and what other flavor would I get for you?" He giggled as she put Natsu onto the table he was going to be rammed into, and she materialized immediately in front of him with puppy dog eyes. She halted in mid-stride. He said, "Here you go, Q," as she ate the food joyfully with stars in her eyes, and Naruto patted her head, making her tails wag behind her. "Naruto is the only one that can make those two calm down right away," Makarov said, perspiring as he watched the redhead act like an innocent little girl around her brother but was a bigger demon than Mira when angry around everyone else. "Cake please," she says in an angelically innocent voice, her lip quivering slightly for effect. Natus murmured, "Thanka. Yua. Narua." Two, from the table, and Gray, in one of his infrequent acts of generosity, placed the youngster in a chair and began applying bandages. The guild master asked from his seat at the bar, "I take it the mission was a success, my boy?" "Yes, Gigi, they're fine and the monster was taken care of," Naruto shouted to him from his spot. "Good, and thank you again for helping them," he said with his grandfatherly smile. "No problem," Naruto says to him as he looks over at Elfman, who is frowning as he begins to leave the guild. "Well then," Urza said, sitting next to Naruto and Q to make sure she didn't lose her temper again. "Where are you going?" Naruto asks him. "I have to get stronger for training," he yells. "Then why not with me?" he asks, jumping out of his chair to follow. "No, I will do it myself," he says angrily. "Why would you do it yourself?" Naruto asks him curiously. "Because a man should be able to protect his family by himself," he says. At this point, the guild silences as they watch Naruto stare at him angrily. He yelled at Elfman, This guild is your family even if they are not related by blood. Not one of us is at the power we have today without help from one another. Naruto asks him, if that is what you think, why are you part of this guild? Elfman and the other members of the guild look astonished. He began, but Naruto wasn't finished. As a family we help one another. We do not turn our backs on them not matter what they need help with, Naruto says. Elfman responds, I have to do this on my own. Why do you? Asks Naruto. Because I have to protect my sisters, he says. Yes, that proved that you need help. Everyone needs it, but few can get it. Naruto cried at him, your entire family wants to help you, so let them. Elfman was crying as he glanced at his sisters, who were merely nodding and smiling at him. I am the strongest of our age group, and the only reason I am here is because I train every day with Urza, Q, and other guild members. Elfman, you must realize that everyone needs help. Your magic is weaker than your sisters because you didn't ask them for help, Naruto tells him. With a broad smile on his face, Naruto tells him, as a family, we support one another and never turn our backs on them. If you want to get stronger, ask for our help and we will do everything we can. As they cheered and moved to join the group, everyone in the guild nodded in agreement. Let's have a spar sometime, Natus tells him through his bandages. I know a book that could help you with takeover magic, Levi tells him, holding out a stack of books. I know a trick or two that you could us, Mira says, placing her brother in a headlock. I'll do my best to help you okay, Lasana says to him with a kind smile. This moment of brotherly bonding caused the guild to erupt in cheers. Elfman chokes back tears as he nods to all of them with a smile and thanks them. Good, now let's protect our family together, Elfman.ni. Naruto says with a fox grin as he holds out his hand. Elfman returns the smile as he takes his hand. Right, Naruto? Nissan, he says with a determined look in his eyes. That's what you do best, my boy, Makarov tells him. What's that, Gigi? Asks Naruto. You can make anyone better, make friends with anyone who gives you a chance, and most importantly, even though you're known as the demon of fairy tale, you've also become the heart of fairy tale, he smiles and tells him. Thanks, but I am just saying what I feel, and if they choose to listen then they do, if not they don't, it's their life so they do what they want with it, Naruto tells him, rubbing the back of his head and laughing in embarrassment. That's why you are the heart. You give them the option and mean everything that you say. That is not something that most do, he says to him. Thanks, Gigi, but I think you know what is about to come, right? Good point, he says as he departs to conceal the breakable items he enjoys. Natsu yells, let's party, and the guild yells, YAAAA. Well, I think it will be fine for now, Urza smiles and nods, and I tell them, I'll go help Gigi hide the breakable things, as I begin to remove all the awards and items from the hall. Party time is yelled by the guild as they bring out drinks and random games, and the brawls have already begun. Urza was sitting calmly with her cake, Q was eating, and watching everything, while Naruto kept watch over everything from the second floor when he noticed Luxus. Although they didn't get along, they respected each other enough to be able to work together if necessary. Naruto approached him and handed him a mug, saying, Luxus, I know that you don't like the guild but you also love it as well. Luxus took the mug and gave him a perplexed look, saying, you want it to be strong but you also think that they are all weak. That is wrong, they are strong for their weakness. Naruto grinned as he leapt down to join the battle, leaving Luxus perplexed. When Naruto got down there, he saw Gray slam into the table that had Q and Urza's cake on it. Take that, snowman, Natsu yelled at the ice user, who was grinning from taking off most of the bandages. Lava breath, get over here, Gray yelled as he lunged at Hima in his boxers. Gray, your clothes. I yelled to him. Ga again. He yelled as he ran to get his clothes. At Su. Urza and Q both growled at the same moment. Ga, Naruto. Nissan, save me. He yelled as he fled from the two, who were right behind him with various gory-looking weapons that promised pain. As he ducked beneath a mace that vaporized a table, Naruto shouted to him, your hint is something they both like a lot. Sorry, can't bail you out every time, might I suggest getting them what they lost? He jumped into the fray to vent his aggression. What did they lose for this much anger? He asked. As he ducked beneath a claymore that was stabbing into the support beam, Natsu yelled, I'm sorry. Girls know destroying the guild fully, is that understood? Naruto said to them as his tail bitch slapped Mikao into a table. Sorry, Naruto, they both cried, briefly changing into happy selves before returning to their demon forms and pursuing Natsu once more. I'll get Naruto to hang out with you if you stop chasing me, Natsu said, his face streaming with anime tears. Q kicked him through the wall, knowing that she could spend time with her brother whenever she wanted. As he walked over to the bar, Naruto yelled, good try, but that was not the answer, Natsu. Since it was almost lunch, he decided to get them food and something to drink, but when he turned back, he saw that a good half of the guild had already been destroyed from the party. He looked up to see Makarov and Luxus watching the fray with small smiles on their lips. Urza stopped for a moment and considered it, but the memories of her lost cake sent her into a rage once more. Urza, Q, come over here for a little bit, it's lunch and I got burgers just the way you like it, he yells to them as they stop swinging and drop the mace and club, creating craters on both sides of Natus, who was taking on the appearance of a pink-haired ghost, and then they get on either side of Naruto and begin eating their food contentedly. He saw that Urza and Q had cornered Natus and were about to deliver the fatal blow when Naruto saved him from them once more. Don't get me wrong, they enjoyed training with Naruto, but even Q, a demon, couldn't keep up with him when he went all out. Well, after this we train for an hour then have an easy night today, Naruto said to the two, and they nodded to him joyfully at the prospect of a laid-back day. After they ate, they asked and got everyone from their generation to join them for their training, with the exception of Kana, who was too busy drinking a good half of the guild under the table. Yay! Q yells joyfully. That is acceptable, we should see if others want to join, Urza said with a slight smile. Okay, Naruto exclaimed excitedly as he considered what they could do later. So what are we going to do, Naruto? Urza asked as they all remained in a circle in the center of the training ground. We are going to be learning how to work as a large group, Naruto told them. What do you mean by that? Mira asked, raising an eyebrow. When they left the guild, they were outside one of the training grounds that Naruto had constructed in the forest so the guild could train without causing damage to the guild. Naruto said to them, well, the fact is that only my group, the Fairy Guardians, are able to work as a team, the rest of you aren't a complete team. Let me explain what I mean. You need to be able to work better together and be able to fight as if you were a single person fighting, not just helping out one another, Naruto said as he raised his hand to silence some yells of protest. Oh, the group responded, well, then this will be something that we all do once a week to get better at working together just in case we have to fight a large group. Also after I think that you all should see the new apartment that I got, Naruto said with a smile. Urza looked a little sad at this, since they turned 15, the two of them have been living in her apartment with Q, while she secretly sabotaged every place they looked at to get him to leave. They all went bug-eyed at this, knowing that he had been looking for one for the past year but had never been able to find one. She knew her apartment was small for the three of them, given how much room her armor took up, but still. She blinked a few times in surprise, but she was also delighted that he still desired to be with her. Don't worry, it's a nice place that I think that you would all like to come to, Urza, if you want, it's big enough for you and your armor to live in, Naruto tells her. Natsu said, come on already, we'll look over your apartment later and let's get to the fighting. Good point. Everyone pair up into 3-man teams, Naruto said, and they nodded before splitting up. The takeover siblings gathered, along with the Shadow Gear and Fairy Guardians, and then Natsu and Gray were left together. Okay, now I will give all of you a number, Naruto said, with 1 being Mira, Urza, Jet, and Gray, 2 being Lasana, Q, Levi, and Natsu, and 3 being Naruto, Elfman, and Droy. Naruto decided to perform some scatter braining after they were perplexed and stated, all right, now I want all of you that are on different teams to find ways to work together. Well, something for my team, where Droy is a support and Elfman and I are heavy hitters. Naruto told the group. Urza's team has Mira and Urza as experienced fighters who excel at close range, while Jet is good at hit and run and Gray has Ice Make. Elfman had power but little speed, so Droy would create a wall of sorts with his plants, allowing us to force enemies into close corners with us. Mira and Urza could launch area attacks as Gray builds defenses for them, and Jet or Urza might pick up a weapon from Gray as he runs around the enemy's extended range. Last but not least, Q's team had Levi, who is a huge help, and Lasana and Natsu could go crazy with Q because they could both heal them regardless of the damage, Naruto concluded. The group put their fist in their hands and made a, oh, sound in understanding. Well, let's do some training, people, Naruto said, raising his fist into the air. Why? After an hour, the teams looked good from Naruto's perspective. He didn't think they were teams, but they could work well together if necessary. Droy and Elfman would make a good 2-man team because they compensated for each other's weaknesses. Droy was quick with his spells, but he didn't hit very hard, but Elfman was the opposite, making them a good 2-man team. He believed he heard them scream something like, Circle of Horror, or something. Whether they wanted to admit it or not, Mira and Urza worked well together with their magic, especially when they created an attack that involved Urza throwing a large circle of her weapons into the ground and then Mira using her evil spark on the area with the metal weapons acting like lightning rods. It took Jet about 40 minutes to get used to the slippery ice, but once he realized that if he added more friction than usual to his speed, he could run like normal, allowing him to go faster with the ice without losing any balance. In any case, Jet and Gray worked well together, with Gray creating walls of ice for Jet to jump off of and creating terrifying combinations. When Gray gave Jet ice gauntlets, Jet was able to hit as hard as he could without experiencing any pain from running at that speed. His greatest surprise was Q and Levi, who worked better together than he could have imagined. Q's magic was darker than Naruto's demon slaying magic, but it required the pure form of certain elements to make some of her spells work correctly. Levi was able to make what Q needed and was able to create all of her magic successfully. Naruto would pair up with the group at random, and thanks to his wide range of abilities and the various tails he had, he was able to work well with the groups. "Alright guys, I think that we are done for today," he yelled, and everyone was covered in scratches, dirt, and was exhausted and sweating, but they were all beaming at what they had done today. They all yelled, "That was awesome. We should do that more often," Natus said. "Yeah," Lasana agreed. Happy yelled as he flew over to them. "Happy, what's up?" Naruto asked the cat. "Master sent me to get you. He said that he was wondering where you all were." "I thought we told him we were training," he said. "Well, he knew that, but that was 3 hours ago and he was worried," the cat said. The group screamed, "We were training for 3 hours. It's almost 7. How did you not notice?" Happy asked. "It didn't feel like that," Elfman muttered. "Well, they say when you are having fun, time flies," Urza said to them. "And I hate to admit it, but it was a lot of fun with you guys," Mira muttered. "We love you to Mira," Lasana said to her with a warm smile. Naruto said to his sister, "Well, then let's not keep the master waiting. I will get my apartment ready for you guys to come Avera. Q, go with them to show them the way, please." "Okay," she said cheerfully, and Naruto continued walking back to his house with the help of the scent he had placed there. He quickly showered, changed into a red shirt and black jeans with a hole in the back for his tail, and prepared some food, beer, and cake for them. The residence resembles Commander Shepard's from Mass Effect 3's Citadel DLC, which is funny. Okay, let's continue the story. I wonder what I ought to create as something straightforward but efficient. Normally, I would just go with ramen, but not everyone likes it, so how about I do a barbecue that could work? Naruto exclaimed gleefully as he created his level 3 cloak, and then the cloak leaped off of him. As he said this, 3 clones of himself appeared. "Okay, Clone 1 and 2, I want you to clean this place up a little," Naruto said, and they nodded before leaving to do their jobs. "Okay, Clone 3, get the kitchen ready. I will be back in a few minutes with what we need," Naruto said to him. And number 2. Yes, I gave him clones. You simply cannot have Naruto without them. However, he can only make as many clones as there are tails, so it is excellent for everyday tasks but not for combat. When Naruto returned from the market, he found the clone in the kitchen with the food ready, so he went over and gave it to him. "Okay, I want for you to get this food set up within 1 hour and stay here and prepare anything that people want you to," Naruto said to the clone, who nodded and began to follow instructions. Naruto muttered to himself, "Okay, they should be here soon. I should get a bedroom set up for Urza," as he ascended to the 2nd floor and saw another plain room similar to his own. "Well, I will let Urza put her personal touches, but for right now let's get this livable," he said, grinning as he began organizing things. He brought in a dresser for her daily clothes, a wardrobe, and a bookcase for her at the far end of the room. Naruto grinned and said, "Okay, that should do it. The room next to hers can be used for weapons and such while the room downstairs is for Q." One of his clones approached him and said, "Boss, the house is clean and your guests are waiting outside for you." "Got it, thanks," he said, absorbing all of the clones except the one preparing food, and then he went downstairs to greet them. With a fox grin, Naruto said, "Hey guys, welcome. Thanks for having us," they all yelled as they entered one by one. "This place is huge," Mira said, surveying the area. "How did you find this place?" Natsu asked. "I helped the building's owner and she said she wanted me to have it," Naruto said to them. "Wow, nice lady, but what is the rent of this place?" "It cannot be cheap," Gray said, collapsing on the couch. "No, it is about 10,000 a month, but with the jobs my team takes it easy," Naruto said. As he grabbed Urza's wrist, Naruto whispered to her, "Come with me, I want to show you your room." When they got up, Naruto led her upstairs, pointing out his room and guiding her into the one next to it. "This will be your room and the room next door will be for you to hold your armor and things," Naruto said to her. "Wow," the group murmurs. "Well, time to eat, tell my clone what you want. She looked around the room and grinned at Naruto, saying, this is great Naru, thank you, using her pet name for him. Wah, Urza. Why did you give me a pet name? Naruto whimpers, because I thought it was cute, she said, her cheeks flushed. A little taken aback by Urza's pouting, Naruto grinned as he hugged her from behind and rubbed his cheek to hers, saying, it's cute, but why don't you use it when others are around? Because it's something you should only do with someone that you are in a relationship with, she said, her cheeks flushed. Urza blushed more and silently cursed the blonde because he knew how to get to her when Naruto asked in an innocent voice, then why aren't we in one? It's something like being my mate, right? You know why, she whispered, not wanting to admit it but still not being over Jelal and the betrayal he had done to her. I know and I will wait for you Urza, Naruto said in her ear, licked her cheek, turning her into a tomato. She hated herself for not being able to forget her past and Jelal, but she couldn't trust someone fully again after what he did. You are my mate, and the one I am closest with. So I will wait for you, Naruto whispered to her, wrapping his tail around her mid and squeezing her a little tighter. Urza leaned into him, liking how gentle and patient he was with her, even though she knew someone else would have left long ago, but Naruto was there for her no matter what. Naruto shouted down to them, coming. He released Urza, causing her to flinch at the lack of contact, but then he took her hand once more and walked down with her, making her smile. Hey lovebirds, are you coming down or not? Mira yelled from below. They both jumped at the sudden noise and then turned the same color as Urza's hair. As she joyfully followed him, Urza thought, please wait for me, Naruto. Just a little longer and I will be fine, I promise. When they finally got down there, they were staring at something that should have been impossible, but everything was Phinia with fairy tale members in a house. Guys, are you okay? There's nothing broken? Naruto asked them. Well, it's your house not the guild or something, so we don't want to break anything, Gray added mentally. Oh, we should play a game, Lasana said cheerfully. Sure, what do you guys want to play? Naruto asked. How about poker? Mira suggested. But normal poker is not interesting, she said plainly. What do you suggest? Urza asked her. What was that matchstick? Natsu said. In Gray's case, cloth poker. What was that matchstick? Gray yelled. In his boxers. Two things. One I got the cards and two Gray your clothes. Again. Naruto said as he entered. Ah? Gray screams as he rushes off to get his clothes. Knowing the true reason Urza wore her armor, Naruto said, well anyway, I'm game for that but are you guys sure? Urza nodded, and there was a chorus of yeses. Can you sit next to me Narua please? She asked from their link. I was planning on it easy. Naruto replied, and they all sat down. Mira smiles and adds, okay, get ready to lose, as Naruto distributes out the cards after shuffles them. After an hour, alright, do you guys want to call it quits now? Naruto asked them, a little worried about how this was going. No way you frickin' leprechaun, yelled Mira, who was upset because Naruto had an unheard of amount of luck and it was making her angry, hence her nickname for him. The majority of the group lost or left after losing too many clothes, leaving Naruto with only his shirt gone, Mira in her underwear, Elfman in his boxers, and Naruto covering her chest with his tail. Elfman tried to seem reasonable when he added, I agree, nay. Shan, let's have this be the last hand. Urza blushed slightly and repeatedly thanked Naruto for protecting her. Fine winner takes all agreed, she shouted angrily, and everyone responded, K. Elfman had a pair of jacks, Urza had a pair of kings and a pair of tens, and Naruto was hiding behind Urza as he threw down a royal flush. Okay, show it, she replied, slamming down 3 queens of a kind. As she flips the table, Mira yells, how the hell? Naruto says, okay, let's just call it game now and eat the food should be done. Okay, Mira complains, putting her clothes back on. Naruto puts on his shirt while keeping his tail wrapped around Urza, and she puts on her skirt and black bra. Naruto some assistance, Urza says to him, and he helps her buckle back on her armor before heading to the rest of the group. Well, this is nice, Naruto said, looking at everyone, while Elfman ate a steak with his bare hands. Like a man. Naruto simply laughed as he chopped up some steak and prepared a salad for himself. Naruto, could you make me one as well? I will get us some drinks, Urza said to him. All right, he said to her as he took another steak and proceeded to do the same to it. Urza was seated at the table with Q, Natsu, and Gray when he finished. He brought the food over and gave it to her, and when he turned to see Q stuffing chocolate cake after chocolate cake into her face, Naruto reprimanded his younger sister, saying, it's okay, Naru. Nissan, I am a demon after all. You two always have the same thing, Natsu said to Urza and Naruto, who blinked a few times, reflected, and realized that the fire breather was correct as they did. They blushed at the realization and became embarrassed. Naruto sighed in defeat and considered getting some digestion pills for her in the morning. Before Urza gave him a full-fledged kick to his shin, Gray began to say, just like a married Sue. Oh. Naruto thought he heard a cracking noise, but he was more worried about how red Urza was. Urza, are you getting sick? Naruto asked, placing his forehead against hers to check her temperature, which only made her redder. I know. Naruto close, she stammered, as Naruto backed away a little. You are a little warm, come on, you were getting some rest just in case, he said as he dragged her out of the room. When they arrived at her room, Naruto removed her armor while she was still dazed, placed her on the bed, and tucked her in. Before she could respond, he left, saying, I'll be back with some medicine and soup for you. If you need anything, I will leave a clone here for you to get me. Stupid Naruto, being overprotective, Urza muttered as she waited for him in bed, pulling the covers up to conceal the majority of her face. Lasana asked, so how is she, Naruto? She is okay. Just going to make her some soup and get her some cold medicine, Naruto replied. Oh okay, she said, you really care for her, don't you? Naruto nodded and smiled slightly, saying, she is who I trust the most and is my Matea. I will be with her forever if she lets me. She laughed at that, but she knew he was telling the truth, and the entire guild understood how he felt, and Urza shared that feeling. Anyway, I'm going a Natsu fireball please, Naruto screamed. A moment later, a fireball came flying at him, and he caught it with his cloaked hand and threw it into the water, instantly boiling it. Naruto also threw some other ingredients in there, making some soup. Okay, it should be done in a minute, he said cheerfully as he went to the refrigerator to get her a drink. Naruto, when did you learn to cook? Lasana asked. Well, Urza and I learned together, and we take turns doing household chores, Naruto told her, grinning. Lasana smiled as she thought, they're getting married, and I wonder if Urza will let me be the bride's woman. Wow, she said, looking amazed. Okay, here is some water, Naruto said, pouring a glass and taking out a bowl and pouring some of the soup into it. Veggie stew, he said proudly as he went upstairs with a spoon in hand. Naruto's ears folded on top of his head as his face twisted in pain at the sudden loud noise near his sensitive ears. That's not what I meant, he whimpered. Sorry, I didn't mean to, she mumbled as she bowed her head, a little embarrassed at her sudden action and for hurting Naruto. Urza was still in the bed, mumbling, not noticing the blonde step into the room. Naruto went next to her and held up the soup and clammed it for her. Urza say ah, he said, holding out the spoon. Ah, she jumped back in shock. She nodded and opened her mouth to eat, saying, it's okay, Urza. Now say ah and not yell this time please. Naruto said, I'm thinking about getting a group photo of us if you think you can get up for it. I will be fine, I said before, I am not even sick, she said as she sat up. Okay, he said, helping her stand up, and he dragged her out of the room and down the stairs, sitting Urza down at the couch and turning to face the others. Naruto shouted, hey guys, let's take a picture of this. Elfman and his sisters approached him, saying, good idea. Gray said, sounds interesting, and he went over. Natsu yelled, I wanna be in it. Levi responded, oh me too, as she approached, followed closely by Droy and Jet. Okay, hey, can you come over and take the picture? Naruto asked his clone, K-Boss, as he approached and took the camera. Alright, everyone say fairy tale. The clone yelled. Naruto sat next to Urza, wrapping his arm around her shoulders and his tail in the middle, with Q sitting on his lap, both of them smiling happily. Lasana and Natus were leaning closer to each other, both of them smiling foolishly, and Droy and Jet were on either side of Levi, both of them giving thumbs up as she smiled. Gray and Mira appeared to be considering tearing Natsu's head off for various reasons. Fairy tale was yelled and the picture was obtained. Do you think that you can make copies for us? Levi asks Naruto. Sure, tomorrow I could send a clone to go and get us some. Who else wants besides me and Levi, I ask. Q raises her hand, but Urza asks, why don't you want one? Well, we are going to be living with Naruto, so why would we need another copy of a picture that he already has a copy of, she says. Alright. Well, there is no reason not to have more copies. Naruto smiles at them. Okay. I want a copy then, Q says joyfully. Whatever you want, Q, Naruto says to her, licking her forehead, causing the girl to giggle. As he took her up, making her cry, Naruto turned to face Urza, who was flushing a little but who he assumed was becoming ill. Okay. Urza, go back to bed with you, Naruto replied. I told you I am. No, she screamed, sick, and he said, I am not taking any chances with you. She sighed and rested her head on his shoulder, realizing that there was no way to reason with him once he entered his protective mode. Fine, she muttered, crossing her arms over her chest. She knew that he would never hurt her and that he genuinely wanted her and Q to be happy, so she didn't mind being treated this way in private. One more year, if he is still like this for just one more year, I'll agree to the maid thing. I will get over this by then. Urza thought toughly. When they were in front of her room, Naruto whispered to her, and I will wait as long as it takes Urza. She blushed at the sound of this and felt ashamed that she had forgotten the link once more. Shut up, she muttered, trying to cover her embarrassment with his shirt. He placed her on the bed, and she covered herself with a blanket right away. After a brief absence, Naruto returned to the room wearing orange pajamas and lay down beside Urza. I made a promise that I would wait till you were ready and I will not break that promise, Naruto said to her, smiling, but her face turned to stone. I want you to prove Prove you won't break it, she said to him in a tone that was almost pleading. Despite his shock, Naruto smiled at her, giving her a bewildered and ashamed expression. I make a promise, he said, placing his hands on her cheeks and kissed her on the lips, not a lick, but a kiss. I will wait for you and promise that I will kiss only you, Naruto said as he touched her head. She was shocked because, although he usually licked her, he had never kissed her before, and a puff of steam rose from her face as she turned so red that she looked like a ruby. I am starting to see why your last name is Scarlet, and your lips taste just like strawberry cake, he said jokingly before yawning. Good night, Urza, Naruto said to her as he wrapped his tail around her and pulled her into an embrace, placing her head on his chest. I love you, my Titania, he whispered as he fell asleep. As she looked up at his face, Urza's mind went from blank to thinking 1,000 things a minute. He said that he loved me, he always calls me his maid or nicknames, but never said love. He had to go and say that, didn't he? Oh God, Naru, if you keep doing this. I love you to Naru, she whispered as she kissed him back gently so as not to wake him. Just a little longer, so please wait for me, she said as she went to sleep with the person she trusts. As they go through the town, Naruto pulls Urza's belongings as she carries a gigantic horn from the monster. Urza, that was a lot of fun, it wasn't a demon like we told, but it was a huge monster that was fun to fight, Naruto tells Urza. Urza apologized to Naruto, saying, yes, it was, and I'm sorry for the misleading information. It came from a reliable source. Sitting on her sister's suitcase, Q tells her, Urza. Nichan, it looked like a monster, but its energy was different, so it was a good try. Naruto grinned like a fox and remarked, haha, I know that thing was huge, I had to go into Nine-Tail State to pin the thing for Urza to defeat it. About halfway through the town, they noticed Loki pouting as he went about his business. Loki, Naruto cried, grinning at the youngster, who looked up and began running to the guild with terror in his eyes. Naruto queried Urza, cocking his head to the side, well, that was strange, did we frighten him? Urza began dragging Naruto along with her more quickly, saying, I don't know, but let's get to the guild. I have been hearing some rumors over the week while we were away. As they walked more quickly to the guild, Naruto murmured to her, as you wish, easy. They discovered that the guild was strangely quiet. As they enter, all of the guild members are staring at them with a mix of amazement and dread. Naruto glanced around and saw a new face, which made him grin. We have more family, easy, he told her in his mind. She smashed the horn on the ground and shouted, I see that and I know that you are happy, but let's get to business. Urza told the guild, the fairy guardians have returned. Then she looked at Mira, who was grinning as usual. She asks, is the master here? Mira tells her, he's actually away at a guild meeting. Welcome back, guys. Urza turned to face the other members of the guild and remarked, I see. While the majority of the guild stares in amazement, one member wonders, Urza, what the hell is that thing? This is the horn of the monster we slayed. The villagers decorated it and gave it to us as a souvenir. Got a problem with that? She said. They instantly answered, no, not at all, out of worry for her. Q and Naruto were laughing over their responses to Urza. With a voice that would make troops shudder in terror, she declared, I have been hearing rumors while we were away. The master might have forgiven you, but I will not. This caused the guild to get dejected and begin to tremble. Her words, Kana, caused the drinking girl to halt as she turned to face her. After saying, stop drinking in an undignified manner, she closed her eyes and made a mental list. When Kana starts to feel down, Naruto appears by her. She smiles broadly as she sits correctly and keeps drinking her beer barrel after Naruto told her, hey, she just means to sit normal, not that you couldn't drink. Urza calls the man, Vista, to grab his attention. Yes. He responds in a startled tone as he stops dancing in the middle of a step. She insists, take your dancing outside. Beside him, Naruto appears with a top hat. Naruto places the hat on his head and tells him, when you dance outside, Put this in front of you and you can get some money while you dance. With a nod, he steps outside. Urza tells Wakaba, "You're dropping ashes on the table," which depresses the chain smoker. Behind him, Naruto is carrying a plate. He tells the pipe smoker, "Just let your ashes fall on this so Mira doesn't have to clean up after you." He accepts the plate from Naruto after thanking him. She turns to her next victim and tells him, "Nab, stop just looking at a job and just take one already." Naruto approaches him and gives him a back pat. He smiles when Naruto tells him, "She is right, you need to take a job, but bring someone along so it's safer, and it's more fun with friends anyway." He leaves to check if anyone is interested in accompanying him. She says, "Macau," and he recoils, sighing, staring. He whimpers, "Say something damn it," as tears begin to pour from his eyes. That's her way of saying nothing was wrong, and also good to have you back. We heard about the Vulcans and we nearly came back to get you, but from what I heard the new girl and Natsu beat us to it," Naruto said to him. He gave him a joyful smile while mentally dancing in triumph over Urza's chewing. She grabs her head and massages her temples, saying, "You all give me a headache." Emerging from behind her, Naruto places his chin on her shoulder and gives her a middle hug. Naruto kissed her cheek and murmured, "Oh easy, don't let it get to you. I know you only get like this because you care." She gives him a small grin and a nod, but then her expression goes blank once more. As she searches for Natsu and Gray, she says, "Right, where are they?" "Over there," is what Naruto exclaims, covering his mouth to contain the laughter that threatens to burst from his eyes. "Hey Urza," is what Gray says as he and Natsu clasp hands and smile while perspiring profusely. Natsu responds, "I." Buahahahah. Q and Naruto begin to laugh in a traditional manner while keeping their sides on the ground. "I see the two of you getting along, but I know that even the best of friends fight at times. Naruto, Q, why are you laughing?" questions Urza. Q and Naruto held up their hands, instructing her to wait a minute so they could collect their breath. They still giggle a little as they accomplish this, but they get to their feet. Naruto tells her, "Oh, it's nothing, easy. You'll understand one day." "Ya sis, don't worry about it," Q responds, waving her away as she occasionally bursts out laughing. Lucy exclaims, "I have never seen Natsu act like this," as she turns to face her companions, whom she knew were deadly rivals from the moment they first laid eyes on one another. "Well, that's because of what they did. Natsu challenged her and got beaten to a pulp. Gray was naked and was beaten to a pulp, and finally Loki tried courting her and Naruto put him in the hospital. He is very protective of her," Mira replies with a grin. Lucy muttered, "Where have I heard that name before, Naruto?" A minute later, a bright bulb popped up above her head. "Wait, I know Naruto, aka the demon of fairy tale, also said to be the strongest in the guild besides the master," Lucy replied with disbelief. Mira grinned broadly as she recalled how he earned that nickname and all the times she had lost to him in spars. "Yep, that's our Foxboy," she replied. "Him and Urza aka Titania have been the hottest topic for mage couples lately also," Lucy responded with disbelief. "That is also true, they have been very close friends up until last year where Naruto did the cutest thing and convinced her to go out with Hima. They have been going steady for a full year almost," Mira says with a grin. The words, "Gray, Natsu, I have a favor to ask," attract their attention as Urza addresses them. "I heard a troubling rumor before coming here and I want to make sure it is not true. I am going to want your help along with fairy guardians, will you help?" she inquires. Given that the fairy guardians were regarded as one of Fiora's best teams, if not the greatest, and that they were requesting assistance, the entire guild is taken aback by this. Mira glances at the group and imagines it, saying, "I never thought I would say this, but this just might be the strongest team ever." Station in Mongolia. After packing their belongings, Naruto, Urza, and Q arrive to the station. Naruto is carrying his belongings in a shoulder bag that contains a book. His primary motivation is to assist Urza in lugging her belongings, but he also learnt seal magic as a backup in case he ever needed to rely on something other than his demon slaying skills. Urza was toting her excessive amount of stuff on her cart, and Q was on Naruto's shoulders since she wanted a piggyback ride. Despite this, they both smiled and held hands as they headed to the station. Urza said, "Hello," to indicate their presence. When Lucy noticed how much luggage Urza had, she remarked, "Urza goo, that's a lot of luggage." On the inside, Naruto was laughing uncontrollably, but he inquired with a fox smile, "Are you all ready to go, guys?" Gray declares, "We are prepared to leave." Natsu responds, "Aye." Lucy begins to chuckle uncomfortably at the scenario and remarks, "And it's happy number 2 all over again. Getting along is nice. Oh, you are the new girl at the guild, what would your name be?" Lucy asks Urza. With a slight bow, she responded, "Oh, I'm Lucy. Mira asked me to come along." Naruto took off his hood and held out his hand, saying, "Oh, that's good, nice to meet you. My name is Naruto, and this is my sister Q." "Naruto, it's good to meet you," she remarked, shaking his hand. She extends her hand and adds, "Hey, I'm his sister. You can call me Q." Lucy shakes her hand and adds, "Nice to meet you too." Sitting on Naruto's shoulders, she glances at Naruto, the fox ears on their heads, and the 9 red tails behind Q. "Before you ask, yes, they are real, and no, you cannot touch them, only Urza can touch them. Q, I don't know, you have to ask her," Naruto tells her. Urza attracts Lucy's attention when she pouts a little. "So you are Lucy? I heard you took on a gorilla army and defeated them with a single finger, is this true?" Urza replies with a grin. Naruto's gaze shifted to the altercation between Gray and Natsu. They entered what Naruto likes to refer to as best friend mode. After Urza briefly took care of them, they were once more locking heads as soon as she turned. Naruto says to Q, "Well, they have developed a rather good sixth sense for when Urza looks at them." Q responds with a tiny giggle as she keeps watching. "Yeah, it's always funny to watch them." Natsu told her, "Urza, I have a condition to coming." In an attempt to save him, Gray murmurs, "Hey, do you have a death wish?" Natsu smiles and says, "I want you to fight me when we get back." Naruto smiles back at Natsu, saying, "Yeah, he is a true slayer, always wanting to fight and get stronger." She says, "Hey, I know you've gotten stronger." "Fine, I agree," with a promising smile. Seeing this, Naruto also gives her a nice smile rather than a fight. Crazy one like Natsu. He screams, "Oh, now I am fired up," as flames shoot up to the ceiling all around him. The trained Urza was sitting next to Naruto, clutching his hand and resting her head on his shoulder. Q was asleep on his lap, which he used as a pillow, and he was softly brushing her head. Over the years, they discovered that Q becomes extremely weary when traveling by transit, and they blame her for it, much like Natus's motion sickness and Naruto's lack of direction. Sitting across from them were Natsu, Lucy, and Gray. Natsu appeared to be claiming his life. Naruto proposed, "Urza, I think we should have Natsu sleep through the train ride." She crouches in front of him and punches him in the stomach, knocking him unconscious, saying, "Good idea." He lands squarely on Lucy, who is a little taken aback. Naruto tells the shell. Shocked Lucy, "Just let him sleep. It's a little weird to knock someone out like that, but Natsu is too durable for much else and it allows him to just sleep through it." She simply lets Natsu nap on her lap while nodding. Gray asks her, "So Urza, what are we doing exactly?" She begins by explaining, "Our opponents are a dark guild called Earsenward, who plan on using lullaby. Isn't that something to put kids to sleep?" Lucy inquires. "I don't think so, there is an item called lullaby and from what I have heard of it, the thing is bad," Naruto tells them. Yes, a dark guild is normally doing something horrible. Earsenward is one that specializes in assassination. The council would normally ban these quests but they have not and that worries me, Urza clarifies. "I know EZ, but all we can do is fix what we can here and now, and what we do know is that we need to go and see the master because it will have something to do with them," Naruto tells them. They stop and give a nod of agreement. Lucy goes to buy some lunch for the group. She has a basket of sandwiches when she returns. "Urza, I just noticed this, but why do you have 2 different eye colors? One is brown and the other is red," Lucy inquires. Urza glances at Naruto, blinks in bewilderment, and then covers her red eye with her palm before grinning. "I got it from Naruto. When I was younger my eye was damaged and I was told that it would be impossible to heal. I only knew Naruto for an hour and he healed it, saying he wanted to help a friend," Urza tells her. Lucy exclaims, "Wow, you can heal people as well," as she stares at Naruto, somewhat stunned by his ability to accomplish what was thought to be impossible. He scratches the back of his head and laughs. "Yeah, I am a rounded mage but I am best at close up, but having a healer in any group never hurts," he replied with a grin. Lucy inquires, "That's amazing, so what type of magic do you use?" in an attempt to learn more about Fairy Tail's alleged strongest. As she begins to pout, he laughs and tells her that my friend is a surprise. She wants to know about her new buddies, so she says, "Fine, then how about you Urza?" Urza's magic is really pretty, it makes enemies' blood spill everywhere just like Naruto's, remarks Happy. Lucy declares, panting, "That's pretty," as she observes the cat with the fish in its mouth. Urza nibbles on some of her cake. With a hint of surprise at Happy's compliment, Urza remarks, "Really, I think that Gray's is much prettier than mine." "Really," he murmurs as he works his powers to make a symbol of an ice fairy tale. In order for Q to consume her chocolate cake, Naruto is occupied with feeding her, who is only partially conscious due to her strong willpower. Oh, so that's why you and Natsu fight all the time. He is fire and you are ice, she responds with disbelief. The finding causes everyone to blink. With a far more astute perspective on Lucy than he had previously had, Naruto remarked, "Wow, I never thought of it that way. When you look at it naturally, you two would never get along." After the lengthy voyage, the group disembarks from the station and stretches. "Alright, now we are going to be going to the master," says Urza. Naruto turned to search for him and said, "Okay, but I am surprised there is no yelling from you, Natsu. Normally, when we get off of any transportation, you are screaming Natsu." After a minute of contemplation, his eyes widen with insight. "Natsu," yells Naruto as he begins to sprint after the train, but it has already left. "Oh shit," he yells as he looks at the train and sees Natsu still there and disappearing as he hangs out of the window. "Oh no, this is my fault. Lucy, please hit me," says Urza. Is Lucy's response, expressing her confusion at what was happening. Naruto jogs back when Urza approaches him. She closes her eyes and declares, "Naruto hit me," anticipating being struck in the head for her impudence. "Alright," Naruto murmurs as he rests one hand on her shoulder. Urza squeezes her eyes shut till she feels a hand on her cheek and something warm on her nose and center. Naruto kisses her nose as she opens her eyes. She murmurs, "That's not what I meant, Naruto," as a flush appears on her face. As she releases her, Naruto smiles and says, "Well, you know I can't hit you, so that is the next best thing." She mumbles, "Fine," and turns her back on him. Naruto said, "Now I am going to go and get Natsu," and was ready to leave when Urza grabbed his arm. They go and get a magic cart, and she declares resolutely, "If you don't hit me, I'll make up for my mistake myself." After renting it, they quickly leave to pick up Natsu. Naruto stated, "We should go to the masters when we get him." The group gave a nod and proceeded to speed away. Lucy points at Natsu and Happy and says, "Hey look, it's them, according to Gray. Nice, now let's go." As they approach, Natsu jumps over as soon as they get them off the train. He shouts at them, "We have to stop the train." Gray asks, "What do you mean, Natsu?" He continues, "They have something called lullaby and they are going after the masters," but his motion sickness causes him to collapse to the ground. However, Naruto and Q both widened their eyes when lullaby was mentioned. Urza says, "Naruto, you know something, don't you?" "Yes, lullaby is a demon that was trapped inside of a flute. I can't believe I forgot about that," stated Naruto. "It was created and brother has to kill it, but its power is scary. You hear the music that it makes and you will die," says Q. Lucy remarks, "But the master are so powerful." "Yes, but that is the thing, lullaby is a spell that shuts down a person that hears it no matter the power. When they go to sleep they die," Naruto responds. Urza responds, "We have to hurry up." Naruto tells her, "Right," and they take off quickly. The station, Urza asks one of the guards, "Are you the guard in charge?" He asks, "No. Why are you here?" "We are part of Fairy Tail. We are going to go in and fight the Dark Guild," Urza tells him. He tells the group, "All right, but watch out, we sent in a group earlier but they haven't returned." As they rush into the station, the group tells him, "Understood. There should be a group of the army here. I hope that they are alive," adds Naruto. Urza tells them, "I agree, but they are up against a full guild. They see hordes of soldiers around every bend." Naruto tells her, "Oh crap, Q, you know what to do, come see us when you're done." She says, "Right." As she approaches the men and begins to heal them, the Dark Guild stops them as they dash into the train station. A man brandishing a scythe declares, "So they showed up." Naruto gives him a chilly gaze and responds, "Yes, we have now given me that demon." Aragorn stares at the group and tries to ignore Naruto to annoy him. "Oh, so Fairy Tail sends flies to do something," he says. Naruto smacks his hands together, sending a shockwave that causes the Dark Guild to back off, saying, "Come and see what we can do." "I would love to, but you aren't worth my time. I have a meeting with the masters to show them the power of the Dark Guild," he adds as he flees. "He ran away," is what Lucy and Happy shout together. Urza replies, "Natsu Gray goes after Hima. If you work together you can fight him." They exchange glances before standing erect at the murderer's aim as he emerges from the Hanyu. Naruto glares at the Dark Guild and tells them, "Guys, there are thousands of lives riding on this along with Gigi's. Put your rivalry aside for a little while until our precious people are safe and back to us." They both give him a solemn nod before taking off. Someone shouted from the Dark Guild, "They fled." A mummy reject said, "I'll get them." "Hey, Venom is not cool. My name is O. Stop talking about my FIC and deal with it, or I'll make you fall face." first onto the ledge you're jumping over. Okay. He leaps over the precipice and begins to pursue the fairy tale duo. The man who resembles Shikamaru and possesses the same abilities said, "I'm coming too, and I am not forgiving that bastard." Naruto cracks his knuckles and declares, "Now it just leaves us against them." One of them asks, "Hee, what do you think you can do? Let's rip off the wings of these girls and show that guy wo's boss," remarked another. Happy tries to bring Lucy back, but she leaves for La La Land, saying, "But I am too cuttia. That's cruel. Get the 1,000-foot crutch going." Urza utters the word, "scum," as a crimson magic circle materializes in front of her palm. Targets. Naruto snarls, cracking his knuckles as red energy bubbles out of his skin and 2 crimson rings form on his elbows. Naruto smiles savagely as he replies, "I don't think I will be able to hold back if you keep on insulting my family." With an authoritative tone, Urza declares, "I will not tolerate you disparaging Fairy Tail." Urza's hand displays a magic sword, and Naruto's hand displays crimson claws. The group exclaims, "Big deal, we got weapons too." Urza uses a strong shockwave to slam them away as soon as they approach. The wizards hurl magic at them, shouting, "Fine deal with this." Naruto says, "Urza." As Naruto raises his hand to halt the gunfire, she leaps into the air in comprehension. Naruto smiles as he takes a breath and says, "Hee hee hee. Thanks for the food." As soon as he does, the magic begins to enter his mouth and he can hear himself chewing. Everyone's mouths drop to the floor. Well. The gang yells, "He eats magic." Naruto uses demon slaying magic to force the group to approach him by extending his shouts and clapping 2 magic-filled arms to the side. Urza transforms her weapon into a spear and launches the gang into the air with a massive slash. After landing beside Naruto, Urza transforms the spear into 2 short swords. "Let's go!" Naruto exclaims as he rushes ahead, slicing everything in his path. Urza is behind him, and her strength sends shockwaves through everything in their vicinity. One of the guild members yells, "What are they?" "Fairy guardians at your service." Q exclaims as she leaps down, her arms imbued with power, shattering the floor and releasing a shockwave that drives everyone nearby away. Naruto smacks a group with his expanded arms and remarks, "Good to see you back, Q." As she takes magic into her hands and forms spheres of red magic around them, Q declares, "Q support and medic." Everyone shouted, "She is a medic," but they were all running as she ran over a big section of the floor at them. Urza, front line assault and Verity fighter, is what Urza says as she slices a group away from them before switching to an axe and delivering another shockwave to the group. Naruto utters the words, "Naruto, guardian and leader," as he begins to transform into his one-tailed form and flies through their ranks, blasting them at Urza and Q, who target practice them. A big person in the back begins to mumble, "Wait, that speed in Ray. Equipment, and the power of the little girl, those Fox features and power." Lucy pulls out Cancer's key and adds, "I'll help out too." Happy whimpers at her, "Hey, this is their moment to shine. Lucy, you might not want to summon Cancer, he might get hurt with what is about to happen." She hears Naruto remark. She pauses in the middle of her swing and gives the blonde a stupid nod before removing her key once more. As magic begins to uncontrollably whirl about him, Naruto exclaims, "Hey easy. There are a lot of them still. Can we use a combination now? I am worried about Natsu and Gray." "Agreed," was her response to him, as a magical circle materialized beneath her feet. Level 5 Demon Cloak, Naruto yelled as a black column surrounded him. Urza dons the armor known as Heaven's Wheel. According to Urza, Combination 1, swords surround Naruto as she charges a Biju cannon. Urza shouts as a circle of swords erupts at the throng. As he attacks the throng with his Biju cannon, Naruto tells her, "They were hoping to see you naked, and I'm killing them." The strikes combine to form a dark ring that begins drawing everyone in its vicinity toward it. It spread the entire Dark Guild as it grew and absorbed everything. Dark Ring as the attack exploded, causing a huge explosion that knocked out every member of the Dark Guild. The two of them yelled together. The man with the green hair exclaimed, "Oh God, I know them. Demoness of Fairies Q, the Fairy Queen Titania Urza, and Demon King Naruto Kyuubi. Together their fairy tale guardians know to be the strongest team in Fury," he remarked with disbelief. Q said behind him, "You got that right." He fled the room just before she struck him. Lucy hears Urza say, "Go follow him," she says, M.me, in surprise. She sprinted after him after saying, "I'm counting on you," with a malicious gleam in her eye. Naruto requests that Q keep an eye on her. She is running off after Lucy in an instant. As she started to fall, Naruto held her by the back and said, "You really should take better care of yourself, Urza." Naruto smiles and tells her, "You never take things in strides, do you, Haim?" She tells them, "Not when there are things at stake that I can't replace." Naruto assists Urza in walking to the entrance and says, "Okay, let's go and wear the people to get out of here." Urza snatches the microphone away from him and stands by herself when they are together. "Everyone, if you value your lives, flee. A dark guild has a magical item that is capable of killing everyone here, and they plan to use the speakers. Now flee from here," she screams. Before Naruto takes the microphone away from her, everyone is gawking at her in disbelief. Naruto took a long breath and stated to her, "Since they don't get it, I will put it in a way that they can understand." Naruto shouts, "She means get the fuck out of here, you dibshits." From then, everyone starts fleeing as fast as they can. A guard asks us, "Why did you do that?" Now they are all in a panic. Naruto tells them, "It's better they panic than get killed." Urza tells them, "You ought to go too." As they depart themselves, they nod their heads while seeming shocked. Naruto tells them, "Now let's get the others and find Ngor." He becomes confused when the wind starts to build up. He notices the station encircled by wind when he looks over his shoulder. "Crap!" he growls, remembering that the most of them are inside. Then his eyes widen as he smells blood in the air. Naruto shouts, "Urza, watch out!" just before Ngor's wind blade strikes her, sending the two of them into the wind dome that encircles the station. Ngor exclaims with savage delight, "Ha ha ha, that worked better than I thought. The only way to go with my wind wall is in." Urza throws herself back against Naruto, who catches her after she strikes her fist into the wall. He flees once more, saying, "Now if you will excuse me, I have a date with your masters." "Damn," was muttered as Naruto got to his feet, repairing Urza's arm and applying regeneration to his back to remove the fresh scar. Urza tells her, "We need to get the others and leave." "Right," Naruto tells her as they begin to flee. Urza and Naruto hurried back to the station to join the others. "Naruto, do you think your seals could do anything on that wind?" questions Urza. After giving it some thought, he sadly shook his head. "No, I need to place it on a target and the wind is ever shifting. I would not be able to get the seal to stick long enough for it to work," he tells her. She asks him, "Then what options do we have?" Naruto tells her, "There are 3 that we could do." As they approach another corner, she tells him, "Okay, I'm listening. Me and Q would be able to eat the magic destroying the wind, but we would have to blast the magic away soon after because that's too much for us to hold at a time," Naruto tells her. As they ran on, she muttered, "That might work but might cause damage to the area. I can go into level 9 and make a gap for you guys to go through and after get through it in level 3 inches," he tells her. She thought that was a nice idea and nodded, but she knew it would hurt him a lot. "We could finally use combination 4 inches," Naruto tells her. That notion made her eyes widen a bit, and she bit her thumb. Although that would be the best course of action, Naruto found that doing so for an extended period of time was exhausting. She tells him, "That might be the best idea, but we only do it for 5 seconds max." Naruto nods and gives her a smile. When they reached the center of the train station, she blushed a little since she liked his smile. They heard Natsu a second after Gray arrived. He yells at the fire dragon's iron fist. Kageyama skids at the feet of Naruto, Urza, and Gray after being punched through the wall a second later. They're all staring at him glumly. Naruto's abilities caused his eyes to light up, giving him a more terrifying appearance than usual. He gave them a terrified face, which made Urza and Naruto smile a little as they knew they could utilize that. Urza asks darkly, "Now tell us, is there a way out of here?" Kageyama did not shake his head frantically. "We were to keep you here as long as we could until he finished preparing the tornado outside to keep you here while he continued the mission. That's all I know," he added, frightened by this guild. He was aware of the fairy tale monster in Titania. Salamander pounded the living daylights out of him as if he were nothing, but they were able to clean the floor with him. He did not wish to enrage these creatures. Urza sighed and stated, "Okay, then we have to us that then." Behind her, Naruto gave her a tender hug. He gave her a playful cheek kiss and reassured her, "Don't worry, easy, I can handle it." Still leaning toward Naruto, she gave him a nod before turning to face the others. "When the others come here we are going to leave and chase after Aragorn," adds Urza. Hugh and Lucy rush to them without any delay. As she begins to pant from running, Lucy apologizes, "It took so long, it was hard to find that guy. I roosted him like one because he was hiding like a chicken," Hugh replied, her eyes gleaming evilly as she began to giggle. Slowly, the gathering began moving away from her. Naruto continued to gaze at his adorable little sister for a minute before saying, "I believe that she is a sadist." As she left his grasp, Urza remarked, I'm sorry to tell you, but she has been corrupted by Mira for a while. He gave her a perplexed look but dismissed it. Urza said them, now let's go, we need to go and help the masters. After giving her a nod, the gang went outside after her. When they saw the enormous tornado wall that was containing them, they were all in awe. Gray shielded his eyes from the intense wind and screamed, how do we get past this? Naruto smiled and declared, we are going to destroy it. Urza's magic circle materialized beneath her, and she nodded. She concentrated on matching Naruto's magic. The words, we fight together and now as one, were hardly audible above a whisper as Naruto walked behind Urza and gave her a back hug. A double layered seal was created when his own magic circle materialized and combined with hers. Demon Slayer magic. Pure unity, Naruto exclaimed as a crimson glow surrounded him. Urza shouted, armor set 1, as she began to change. When Naruto began to encircle Urza while transforming into armor, everyone was taken aback. View the image in the profile. Everyone was taken aback by Urza's change as the smoke cleared. Additionally, the enormous red claymore she was carrying frightened them to no end. She appeared to be surrounded by a demonic aura as well. They failed to notice that she shared Naruto's small whisker traces on her cheeks and that her eyes were slits like Naruto's. Naruto responded to her in a cheerful tone, easy, you're all set. Urza dropped the claymore to a low, ready posture and gave him a nod. With a demonic voice, she screamed, bloody crescent, and arced her blade straight up, slashing for the wall. As it got closer to its objective, the attack intensified rapidly. It was large enough to have split a train in two when it arrived. It rapidly dissipated after exploding in a slice motion as soon as it made contact, slicing the entire wind wall in half. Naruto laughed and said to her, wow, great job, easy. And good call on holding back. If we had used 25% like I thought we needed, we would have sliced the town in half. Urza let out a sigh at the antics of her boyfriend. That's why I said to only use 5% anymore would have been a waste, she remarked as she was encompassed in a dazzling red light like before. Naruto materialized behind her, still holding her in the same way. Naruto kissed her cheek, causing her to flush once again, and remarked, that's why you're the brainsheim. The others who were present were still attempting to lift their mouths off the floor. Q, who didn't believe they could use Union yet, was also taken aback. Naruto shouted to the group, all right, let's go. Happy began to fly them there once Natsu emerged from his astonishment first. When Naruto noticed this, he grinned at his pal. He turned to the others and thought, you are a brazen slayer, Natsu, but that's not a bad thing. He noticed a wobbling Kageyama at the door looking at them in shock, but suddenly dropped down onto the ground. This startled Naruto, who was ready to go assist when Q suddenly materialized by his side and started to heal him. He is hurt bad but he will be fine with rest. We might want to take him with us, I sense he is not what he tries to seem. Q tells Naruto. Naruto nodded and smiled at her knowing what she meant. Alright, if that's what you want. Now everyone let's get going, we have a certain demon to slay. Naruto remarked as he started cracking his knuckles in eagerness. Urza and Naruto took the front seat while they began driving, and the others nodded. Gray then assisted Q in getting Kageyama into the cart. To thwart the Dark Guild's scheme, they began to drive as fast as they could to the location. While traveling, Q managed to sufficiently heal Cage to enable him to communicate and provide them with information. They began to move more quickly after learning this. Urza refused to let Naruto take over, even though he could see how exhausted she was. Naruto, if you have to fight Lullaby then I want you to be at full power, for that I can drive us there but I will be drained to help. Urza tells him. Though disturbed by this, Naruto realized she was correct. Although they were unaware of the demon's actual might, they were aware of how lethal its magic was. Naruto told her anxiously, okay, Urza, but please don't exert yourself. As she drove on, she nodded and grinned at him. Natsu was in the center of a massive pillar of flames when they arrived at his location. Aragorn was now twitching on the ground from the severe thrashing he had given him. Take that! Shouted Natsu, pumping his fists in triumph. To greet him, the gang disembarked. Urza began pouting and complaining that he was not paying attention to her as Naruto carried her in a bridal fashion. Although she was secretly loving every second of it, she was nevertheless ashamed of him for doing this in public. She needed to maintain her reputation. Naruto rubbed his head and murmured, nice job, Natsu. You are a true slayer. Urza's deadly gaze told him that if he moved her, she would murder him. He began to giggle and was about to slap his hand. Without a doubt, he simply accepted it, laughed, and took in his friend's compliments. Naruto noticed that the lullaby flute was on the ground, as did Q. Naruto was about to crush it when he noticed a shadow. Handcrafted object, grab it. We just need to break that and we are done, he said. Ha ha ha, see you fairies. Kageyama laughed as he took the flute and drove away in the cart. Gray, weren't you guarding him? Naruto cried as he set Urza down as he pointed to the cart going away. He wasn't able to move more than his hands. I didn't think that he could move that much, replied Gray. Knowing that Gray typically performs well, Naruto sighed. If he had believed that, there shouldn't have been any need for concern. Fine, no problem, we just have to beat the hell out of Cage then, said Naruto. Lucy screamed and began to fear. How are we going to catch him? He stole the cart, and it's a day's run from here. Don't worry, my brother can take care of that, Q told him, giving him puppy dog looks once more. Naruto stepped away from his friends and remarked, of course, and Q, you didn't need to do that, I wouldn't make you carry us there. A magic seal materialized beneath him as he dropped to his knees. Demon Slayer magic. Nine-tail cloak, he murmured as he was encased in crimson energy again. He began to grow but stopped when he was 2 stories tall and resembled Kyuubi identically. Natsu stared at Naruto in amazement and remarked, wow, I thought he would be bigger. Well, this form he is actually the size of a mountain, but that would be hard for him to carry us, stated Urza. She giggled a little at the softness of Naruto's fur as one of his tails encircled her and raised her up on top of his head. While Gray and Natsu, who were holding Happy, just leapt on top of his back, he did the same for Q and Lucy, placing them on his back. Urza said to Naruto, all right, let's get started. With a little nod, he began to speed away, being cautious to keep her on top of his head. That spot in the forest. When the gang arrived at the clearing, Naruto put them down and covered them in his tails before changing back into himself. Because he was not experiencing motion sickness, Natsu exclaimed with joy, that was awesome, we should ride on Naruto more often, it's faster and better than any train. Yes, and thanks to Urza we were able to get here quickly, Lucy replied. Urza returned to his natural self after grinning at the compliment and receiving a hug from Naruto. Thanks for the help, EZ, he exclaimed joyfully as he tucked his tail around her once again and nuzzled into the crook of her neck. She simply enjoyed the warmth and would argue that she wasn't acting that way. Gray snarled. Where is he now? He wanted to make amends because he was still upset that Cage had escaped while he was watching. Naruto pointed down the hill and said, he is over there with the master. When the group noticed that he was going to play the flute, they became alarmed. Natsu was about to jump down when he cried, we have to stop him. However, Q flung him back while shaking her head and grabbing him by the tails. As they observed him, she told him, you should just wait and watch. There is no need for us to get involved. Right as always, Q. Shan came from behind them in a male-female voice. When they turned around and saw Master Bob directly behind them, the entire group jumped. As he began dancing, I believe, toward the boys in the group, he remarked, oh, you all have grown. You're also just my type. Naruto froze as Urza, still in his arms, began to pour malicious intent at him. Master Bob, remember the last time you tried to take Naruto away from Urza? Q said to him. With the knowledge that Naruto was off limits permanently, he began to shrink away from her. He began pursuing Gray and Natsu, who were still available, but then he felt a twinge of interest. He was still discussing guild and family with Cage when he returned to Makarov, and he was able to disarm Kageyama with just words. As they descended the hill, the group began complimenting him on his accomplishments. Urza gave him a hefty lump on the head after slamming his head into her steel armor while Q and Naruto were trying not to laugh. Makarov stared at them all and asked in confusion, why the hell are you brats here? We knew that he was coming for you and the flute lullaby was going to be used, so we were here to destroy it, Urza said him. They started searching for it after he gave her a nod. A menacing voice shouted, you weak foolish humans. The group gazed with disbelief at the instrument. Did that just say something? It can talk, Lucy, Gray, and Natsu pondered. As it began to shine brighter, Naruto remarked, this is bad, it's waking up. Naruto screamed, Q, get everyone out of here now. She wasted no time in grabbing everyone by the tail and bouncing off to the master's meeting. By the time she arrived, Lullaby had transformed into what appeared to be a gigantic tree. When Lullaby wrecked a mountain, the army arrived but was soon driven out. For me to consume, I smell a lot of spirits. Lullaby howled as it began to chuckle, and it appears that the one with the armor is a very powerful one. Naruto's eye opened at the sound of this, his animal features beginning to take shape and his bangs concealing them. Oh crap! Q exclaimed as she began to duck behind the master. According to Urza, that was a bad idea, as she worriedly glanced out at Naruto. Naruto snarled, what did you just say? As magic began to whirl around him. When that human lullaby turned to face Naruto, what did it say? As a huge magic circle materialized beneath him and a huge column of magic rose to the sky, Naruto screamed demonically, "I asked, what did you say that you were going to do to my mate?" The degree of power he was demonstrating astounded everyone. Makarov saw him change, thinking, "My boy, you could be a wizard saint easy with that power." Demon slaying magic. 9 tails. As it attacked the leaf, Naruto shouted and grew to the size of Kyuubi, overpowering Lullaby, who was now terrified to death. Now seeing how deep in muck it was, a demon slayer utters the words, "Wait," in fear. "I'll rip you apart," Naruto yells as he begins to do just that, killing Lullaby one piece at a time with his claws as he hacks and slashes. The other masters were gathered in the group below, and they were all extremely terrified. In a shout, 2 demons are fighting. "We're doomed," shouted another. As he watched Naruto thrash Lullaby to a pulp, Makarov remarked, "All of you stop worrying, Naruto is taking care of it, though he is going a little overboard about it." Naruto destroyed it from its seal when it attempted to use its song, preventing it from completing its spell. As Q saw her brother beat the living daylights out of Lullaby, she remarked, "This is the only fault that demon slayers have." "What do you mean?" Natsu asked, staring at Naruto's strength as he observed the battle. As she watched, Q added, "They are so protective of their mates that when they are threatened, they go into a primal rage. When they are actually hurt, it's even worse than this." Urza watched this with sadness, knowing that she was the reason he was acting this way, even if it wasn't her fault. "Urza, when he is finished with it, you are going to have to calm him down," Q tells her. As the group watched, she simply nodded. Naruto rapidly spun around in a circle, producing a weak tornado to erupt, after grabbing a weakened Lullaby by the legs. He hurled it into the air as forcefully as he could, then he pointed his lips at it. "With you, to the 9 layers of hell." As he aimed the explosion directly at it, Naruto roared, "Demon Slayer Magic Hell's Cannon." The blast vaporized it totally. There were a lot of blue sparkles in the night sky after it was destroyed. However, Naruto was allowing his anger to control him and began howling into the night. Q hurriedly told her, "Urza, you must go and calm him down now." She gave a nod, put on her heaven wheel armor again, and flew toward Naruto. Naruto continued to be furious, yelling and attacking others around him. "Naruto, stop." Urza yells at him via their connection. Naruto was in the middle of something when he heard Urza's voice and pause. He turned to face her and replied, Ra-za-a. She held out her arms and looked at him lovingly as she flew a few inches from his nose. She smiled and said to him, "It's okay, Naruto. You beat Lullaby, so relax and come to me. Please, Naru.koi." As Naruto removed the enchantment and began to shrink, tears were in his eyes. As he completely changed back into himself, he thought terrified, "I lost control again, I am nothing more than a monster." He broke his vow to Urza that he would not lose control like that again, and when he did, he was in the fetal position, holding his head and sobbing. Naruto took off her armor and changed back into her everyday attire. Removing the armor, she approached Naruto and gave him a deep hug while rocking him like a baby. Leaning onto her, Naruto prayed that she would hold on. Nobody is more upset than Q, who realizes she is powerless to assist her brother when the others reach this point. Makarov, "Why is Naruto-chan like that?" Bob inquires. "It is because even though he is powerful, he is also scared of it. It is a magic that can easily overpower his will and could have him hurt those he cares for. He lose control and nearly hurt us, and it is putting him in emotional turmoil," says Makarov. Bob looks at the two and says, "Well, he did defeat the demon and we are very thankful for that. I just hope that he will be better." At that, the group gives a small smile. As he observes the two, Gray remarks, "There is no need to worry with Urza there, she will look after him like always." Natsu smiles and responds, "That's true. Lucy proposed, let's get some transportation to get everyone home." "Good idea, but those two need their own cart." "Understood," comments Makarov. They give a nod and leave to prepare. Urza was holding Naruto while they conversed back there. Actually, it was more like Urza soothingly spoke into his ear as Naruto apologized repeatedly. She didn't mind that Naruto was holding her so closely, even though it was slightly crushing her. She was aware that he didn't want to hurt her, but at the moment, he was too afraid to realize it. After some time, she made the decision to force him to look at her. "Naruto, you fulfilled your duty as a demon slayer and no one was harmed," she told him severely. "So Naru.koi, I am not angry with you. I am just proud of you understanding," she remarked to him, her face softening. Despite his astonished gaze, he nodded and rested his head back on her chest, grinning at her despite his current lack of confidence in his voice. She knew he was at least content when she noticed his tail wagging behind him. She leaned down, lifted his head up again, and gave him a full lip kiss. Despite his disbelief, he kissed him back, glad that his partner was supporting him. After a few moments of maintaining their lip lock, she leaned away from him. As she got up and brought him up with her, she heard him whimper and laughed a little at his animal ways. She told him, "We're heading back to the guild, okay?" They began to walk after she felt him nod against her breasts. He muttered, "Thank you for always being there, Urza." Heim. Knowing that she was being all he wanted from her and he was being everything she wanted from him made her very happy when she heard this. She told her, "Remember, I promised you that I would always be there." Even though she couldn't see, she knew Naruto was grinning broadly. Looking her in the eye, he replied, "And I would be there for you always." Even though they were bloodshot from crying, they were still the same shade of blue that made her think of the sky. After releasing him, she continued to clutch his arm and entwine her fingers with his. She said joyfully, "That's the Naruto I know, always getting back up." As they went back to the others, he agreed with her and giggled a little. 2 carts with drivers were waiting for them. The driver informed the two that they were in his cart and would return to their guild by noon tomorrow. With a nod, they entered the wagon. They took a seat and began to be driven away. Naruto jokingly told her, "You know you are going to have to fight Natsu right when we get to the guild." With a sigh, Urza nuzzled his chest while holding him on the side of the cart. She closed her eyes and whispered, "I know, but for now I want to be with my koi." Something warm and gentle was pressed against her lips as she felt herself raised higher. When she turned to look, Naruto was kissing her. As his tongue moved beyond her lips and into her mouth, he moved his hands and tail around her, warming her. When he began to rub her tongue with his own, she stifled a groan. His hands began to stray, but he restrained himself by recalling that he needed to wait until Urza informed him that she desired to continue. Urza, who was happy with his kisses for the time being, was a little irritated that he stopped when she wanted him to continue. Breathing heavily against each other, they parted the strands of saliva that connected their lips. Naruto embraced her and said, "I love you, Urza Scarlet, and nothing will ever change that." Despite her intense blush, she grinned and leaned in closer to Naruto. As she fell asleep, she thought, "I hope that we have more times like this where it's just me and you, Naruto.koi." Naruto grinned at her and dozed off as well, anticipating their Homa the next day. Near Fairy Tail the following day in the cart, Naruto and Urza were still resting comfortably and taking in the calm. When the cart driver noticed them and realized it was almost time for them to get out, he couldn't bring himself to stir them up, so he just kept driving. In order to allow Urza to sleep, Naruto pretended to be asleep even though he could smell Fairy Tail and knew they were there. The only thing he knew about Q and Urza was that they both detested being awakened without cause. He stayed there and gently stroked her hair as she didn't need to be woken till they were to Fairy Tail. As he lay in the cart, he thought, "I made the right decision now. I just hope that she doesn't go out and kill Natsu for fighting her." The gang finally arrived at their destination 30 minutes later. Q hurried to the other cart to visit her brother and sister after throwing Natsu out as soon as they finished. Urza was rubbing the sleep from her eyelids and her brother was giving her a shushing gesture as she arrived to the cart. Naruto and a sleepy Urza left when she nodded and softly opened the door. Naruto said, "Thank you, driver.san." As he drove away, he said, "No problem, you too, and have a nice day." When he did, Naruto turned to face Urza, who gave herself a quick slap on the cheeks to get her attention. Naruto asked, "So you ready to fight Natsu soon?" She nodded and grinned at him. "Yes, I am curious about how strong he has gotten since the last we saw him," she replied. "Uuahhhhhim fired up," was Natsu's cry as he leapt to his feet. It was really hard for Q and Naruto Urza to keep from laughing. When it came to fighting, Natsu was far too enthusiastic. Urza's expression darkened once more as she told him, "All right, let's go get the master back home and then we can go and have your fight." The group nodded to her and smiled. The guild as a whole cheered them on as soon as they opened the door. "You're back!" they exclaimed joyfully. An enormous cake with a nice job on it was in the center of the guild, which was all set up for a great party. With a huge smile on his face, Naruto remarked to her, Go figure easy. Chan, they were waiting for us." She addressed him gravely, saying, "Yes, they did, but that better be strawberry." When Naruto heard that, he laughed a little and assumed Q was thinking the same thing, but that he was saying, chocolate. Some of the members said, "Come on, let's party." Naruto shouted to the guild, "We won't worry, but first Natsu asked to spar with Urza, then we go and party, got it?" Kaina's eyes glowed as she considered the money she would win from the wagers. As they ate their meals, the other guild members considered using it as some form of entertainment. To strengthen themselves, the guild traveled to the back of one of the training grounds Naruto or one of his clonisa had constructed for them. Urza and Natsu were facing each other after everyone had found a seat and Kana had finished putting the bets. Natsu lit his hands and declared, "This time, Urza, I'm going to kick your ass." She utilized her magic to equip her Flame Empress armor and remarked, well, it has been a while since I fought a worthy opponent besides Naruto." Urza leapt to the side, avoiding Natsu's punch as he pounced at her. Natsu caught her by the wrist and hurled her into the air as she slashed with her sword. She saw a ball of fire being hurled at her as she flipped in midair. With a rapid thought, she cut the fire in two and called forth a war hammer from behind her. She hurriedly put it back in her pocket dimension after kicking it off. Natsu skidded back as she dove down and slammed the flat of her sword into his side. When she assumed a slashing position, she exclaimed, "Very good Natsu, you have improved quite a bit." As the flames in his hands grew larger, he grinned maniacally and said, "I told ya, now let's cut loose." As he put his right hand in fourth tail mode and held it out in front of the guild to avoid injury, Naruto muttered, "This might be bad for the guild." Where there had been dust clouds, the two lunged for each other. There was a gong, like clapping sound just before they made contact. Naruto recognized the person immediately. As he put his other arm back to normal, he thought, "Oh goddammit, I hate the council." When a frog entered the center of the space, many guild members were forced to take responsibility. "Stop now, I am an emissary for the National Council of Urza Scarlet and Naruto Kyuubi, you are under arrest, please come with me," it told everyone. As he approached the emissary, Naruto remarked, "Oh, you're bringing her into this when I was the only one smashing things. My god, the council is blind." The words, "There were charges against both of you," were stated clearly. However, it was frightened to death on the inside because Naruto appeared frightening due to his ice blue eyes. Naruto swung his palm out toward the shadows of one of the buildings and said bluntly, "Okay, we go. But no cuffs, if you do I'll paralyze you along with them." A handful of rune knights flew after he did, sending a shockwave hurtling toward the darkness. "You have no right to attack them," the frog screamed. "How dare you have them in the shadows when I have been known to cooperate with the council under the fact that they swore to leave Fairy Tail to their business as long as no one dies," replied Naruto. Urza told him to calm down, but before this could happen, she seized his shoulder and face. With a sigh, he nodded to her, making her grin. "We're going," she declared. With a somewhat terrified nod, the emissary started to go. Naruto told him, "Natsu, take care of the guild while we are out. It won't take long." He muttered, "Fine," as his rage began to subside. As they climbed onto the cart and started to drive off, Naruto said, "I am going to remind the council that they don't have power over me. I guess this was forgotten in me being lax with them." Branch of National Council Fury following the frog that was making that unpleasant Gecko noise with every step, Naruto and Urza were strolling side by side through the building's numerous halls. Naruto's eyes grew enraged and his power began to leak forth as they approached the doors to the counseling room. "You," he snarled, glancing at a teenager with a tattoo over his right eye and a profusion of blue hair. As he stood up from the wall he was resting against, he said to them, "Oh Urza Naruto, good to see you." Urza looked at Naruto, but she was able to control her wrath much better. Calmly, she said, "Hello Jelil." He responded to her, "Oh such a cold hello, you wound me," as he moved away from the wall and approached them. When he attempted to touch Urza, a furious Naruto greeted him by smashing and nearly breaking his hand. He grumbled and made a vow to himself, "You will not touch her again." His eyes had turned red, and his angry teeth were clearly visible. Urza forced him to look at her by taking his hand in hers. "Calm down, Naru. Your rage is for another day." She spoke to him in a chilly tone. After taking a big breath to settle himself, Naruto nodded to her, understanding her meaning instantly. He spoke to her in a much more composed tone, saying, "Okay, easy, but only because you asked." As she looked back to Jelil, who was tending to his nearly broken hand, she grinned at the "good" she had uttered to him. As he returned to the rooms, he told to them, "Well, that was a handshake, Naruto, and all I came to say was just keep out first home our little secret." Naruto double-checked his vow to her by asking, "Urza, if he tries to do anything to Fairy Tail, I can kill him, right?" As they entered the council chambers, she told him, "Yes, Naruto, he is the only human that I would not feel bad about you killing." One of the counselors questioned, "How do you plead now that the court will be called to order with Urza Scarlet and Naruto Kyuubi being charged?" Naruto gave them a chilly glare before his strength abruptly surged, trembling the room and making it extremely difficult for everyone to breathe aside from Urza, who was accustomed to his might. Why Counselors Idoa, why have you all repeatedly broken our agreement when you should all be aware of the consequences? Naruto addressed them in a demonic, icy, cold voice. Each member of the council began to tremble with terror. It was a very simple affair deal. We don't kill anyone and do jobs without much property damage. And you look past what did happen and leave my guild in peace. I have made it clear what the consequences would be, and you should know I am a horrible enemy, he said to them with the same icy voice. The lawyer was now perspiring profusely. They were aware that he could easily destroy the council, which would be the result. When the wizard saints banded together against him, he demonstrated that he could easily defeat them all. Even if they chose to believe it or not, he said that he only used half of his strength against them since Urza had instructed him not to kill them. One of the counselors started to explain, W. We were sore. yn.uru.to. Sama, but the people were believed that we could not keep the peace. Naruto relaxed a bit to allow them to talk normally once more. Taking the message, the counselor went on. The crime rate has increased lately, and all that were interrogated has said it is because of so many of the guilds being able to vandalize that they don't see why they can't, he told him. Urza palmed his face as Naruto assumed a contemplative attitude. Naru, they still have to do their job, but maybe we should help out and make sure that Fairy Tail doesn't go all out like it does. Natsu is a lost cause because his magic is just naturally too destructive, but there are others that we can help, Urza said him. Well, whatever you say, easy, and I guess I overreacted. I was just pissed off from something today, Naruto remarked, pausing to glance at Jellel, who had just regained his composure and had not anticipated Naruto's level of power. Well, may we go? Naruto said. They were all thanking God that Urza was a calm individual and had control over their connection, because otherwise they would have died by now. The council simply nodded, not wanting to enrage the blonde any more than they already had. The Fairy Tail Naruto's seal magic allowed him and Urza to return to Fairy Tail in record time. As they made their way back inside the guild, Urza was wearing her casual attire once more, and they were holding hands. As soon as they arrived, Mirajane, her brother and sister, Hugh, Kana, Levi, and Shadowgear grabbed them and dragged them to a table. Until they reached their chairs, Naruto and Urza were too bewildered to resist their dragging. Urza asks them in confusion, what is this all about? They all grin when Mira suddenly takes out a pen and book. As she prepared the pen, she remarked, well, we wanted you to tell us again how you two got together. After a few seconds of being stunned, Naruto and Urza both had a significant flush. Mira teased the two, saying, come on, it was very cute and heroic how it happened. She developed the habit of making fun of Naruto and Urza whenever she could after learning that Naruto would never pick her above Urza. With her puppy dog eyes, Q pleaded to him, come on, please, brother. Knowing that Naruto could never withstand his sister's puppy dog gaze, the other members of the gang simply smiled. Naruto simply sighed when he saw it. Naruto said to them, all right, come together. They all smiled, and Q magically materialized in Naruto's lap as Urza was leaning against him and had her eyes closed. She was terrible at telling stories, so she detested having to do it, but she enjoyed hearing Naruto describe it, even if it was one of the scariest things she had ever experienced. Naruto began, and Mira began writing. Well, it all began a year ago when we first encountered my first Demona. Rewind as they strolled through the forest, Naruto asked her, so, Urza, do you think this is a real demon this time? As she walked along him, she added, yes, I think this one is true, it's just unfortunate that Q couldn't come. She said she had to help Mira with some things at the guild, but it's fine, we should be able to beat the demon ourselves. He told her. Then, recalling the kind of demon they were pursuing, his face clouded. They were called in to look into a shadow demon that had been frightening a nearby community. According to QB, this was one of the demons he detested the most out of all the kinds Zareth had produced. It was known to rape and kill women and children while taking them away in the middle of the night when it was invisible. In fact, as they went to attack this, he begged Mira to take Q away. Because of his mating mark on her, he was aware that he could remove Urza from their relationship if things went wrong, but he would need to touch Q, who he might not be able to reach. He had the ability to reintegrate Urza into the guild. Urza jolted him out of his reverie. She questioned him, Naru, what do you need me to do when we find this demon? I am going to need for you to save anyone that it captured and get out of there. I can't risk anything against it, so I am going to go all out the second that you are clear, she heard him say. Urza, who seldom went all out, was taken aback by this. Since he didn't want anyone to be caught in the crossfire of his power, he was actually scared to do it. Then she understood the importance of her work. He might injure someone A or C if she didn't get them all out right away. She pouted and replied to him, got it, Naru, but please be careful. I don't like you not letting me fight by your side. When Naruto observed this, he gave her a melancholy smile. Naruto licked her cheek and murmured, I know Urza, but it's best that I don't think I could live with myself if something happened to you. Urza still didn't like it when he did that suddenly, so she covered her eyes with her hair and reddened. She told him, somewhat offended that she didn't trust her to defend herself, I can defend myself. He tells her, not wanting to reveal the whole reason, I know you can, but please just this once don't come. After a minute of staring at him, Urza lets out a sigh. She gives him a nod but makes no promises, saying that she will help him no matter what if she sees that he needs it. He smiles and says, thanks, easy. They keep walking to their objective, but as Naruto smells demons, his features get more ferocious. His whisker lines darken and his hair stands on end. He tells her, easy, get ready. I smell him. I smell other humans. Her face changes to her icy one, indicating to him that she was serious and prepared, and she nods to him. Urza follows him as he runs off. They discover a cave with the densest scent, and Naruto growls in rage as he smells blood and bodily fluids. As Naruto smelled the crowd, he thought angrily, I'm going to enjoy ripping this thing apart. He estimated that 3 women and a handful of children were causing him to clench his teeth as his rage grew. A column of Naruto's energy exploded from him as he spoke, Urza, put on your flight armor and prepared to exit. Urza closed her eyes to prevent herself from going blind as her hair began to fly everywhere. The amount of force that Naruto was releasing astounded her, and she was terrified as she sensed his fury. No, that wasn't the correct word, and the rage that was emanating from him started to shake her. Naruto was already in his second tail condition when she put on her flight armor and sprinted at full speed following him. It was dark when they reached the cave, but they could still hear people shouting and sobbing. Nobody can stop us now that the devils are gone. Who shall I pick next? A slimy voice murmured, you'll do nicely. No mommy, shouted a girl. When Naruto heard this, he became so angry and heartbroken that tears streamed down his face. As he emerged through a gap, he thought, there were others before her that I didn't see. I'll repay him 1,000-fold for what he has done. He almost passed out from sheer disgust at the monster after seeing what he did. See, Lust Demon, graphic on profile. He watched as a young girl, no more than 5, was held aloft by its dark vines as her clothing was torn off. The girl was freed when Naruto emerged in front of the monster and slashed the vines. Erza! Naruto screamed, turning to face the startled monster. Right, she shouted back, catching the girl before she touched the ground, then snatched up 3 other kids and ran away. Another Naruto erupted out of his back and onto the ground in his one-tailed state, whispering, Demon Slayer Magic Doppelganger. It immediately knew what to do, snatched the women, and chased after Urza out of the cave. The demon responded to him in the same slimy voice, oh, so you're a demon slayer. If I didn't already know your weakness, I would be worried. The threat caused Naruto's eyes to flicker a little, but he still charged for the demon. As it attempted to smack Naruto away, it smiled with its viney mouth. However, its vines began to hiss as if they had come into contact with acid as they contacted Naruto's cloak. It screamed in agony as Naruto cut at its chest. You learned from Kyuubi, but no matter how strong you are, you won't be able to beat one of Zeref's 7 demons, it said as a much bigger root emerged at Naruto. When a magic circle materialized beneath him, who caught it? Looking up at the demon, Naruto snarled in a ferocious demon voice, I am going to take great pleasure in ripping you apart. Kyuubi taught me 2 people that I couldn't stand and that I hate above all else. Rapists and kidnappers, are you both, and you will die here. The devil became concerned. Although Kyuubi's demon slayers were extremely strong, he was aware of them and had already killed a lot of them. What was unique about this one, though, was that he was a devil himself, and he made everyone else look like ants. Then it had an idea that made it smile again. As the ground shook around them, Naruto continued, you're a hybrid demon slayer, which is why you're so much stronger than the others. Still holding its dissolving roots in his clawed palm, Naruto gazed down at it without saying a word. Naruto spoke the words, Demon Slaying Art 4 Tail Cloak, as a column burst out of him, creating a neat hole in the cave's top. The remaining root was vaporized during this process, giving Naruto a hiss. Naruto was on all fours, growling at the demon and flailing his 4 tails behind him as the column cleared. It started to descend into the ground and stated, I see you hope to end this early, but unfortunately for you this cave is coming down now. You sealed your fate and I can leave into the darkness once again. Before it could, Naruto threw his arm at it. Several additional arms then sprang from his extended arm, snagging the demon and making it hiss in agony once more. It slapped some of Naruto's arms away and muttered, you are getting on my nerves. Naruto grasped and tugged harder at those that didn't. As Naruto tossed the demon through the opening on top of the cave, the surrounding roots were torn along with it. Naruto quickly rushed up behind it, intending to tear it to pieces. He looked about once he was above ground, but he was unable to see it. You assumed that being above ground would give you an advantage, but the demon's voice remarked, "Oh, how wrong you are. As things went on, you only made it simpler for me to ruin you and get away." Knowing that he couldn't locate it with his hearing, Naruto tried to locate it by sending out weak pulses of his power. When he discovered it, he was horrified to see it encroaching on Urza and his clone as they attempted to escape. He hurled himself as forcefully as he could at the region. He located it a moment later and directed his magic into his mouth. He screamed as a concentrated blast of power was launched at the monster, Demon Slayer Art Biju Bomb. It escaped a direct impact after hearing the shockwave that was headed its way, but he was struck by the full explosion. After it was flung back, Naruto landed close to Urza, who stopped when she sensed the Biju Bomb's shockwave. That was painful, but it validated what I had believed. Your companion is your mate, isn't she? It said, encircling Urza with roots that prevented her from moving. When he heard Urza cry in agony as the roots tightened around her, Naruto's eyes widened and he started to lunge at the demon. "Oh no, little demon slayer, if you take even a single step closer, she will die. Now take off your cloak," it was instructed, and to make its point, a root appeared close to Urza's neck, threatening to stab him if he disobeyed. With anger visible in his eyes, Naruto immediately lifted his cloak and stood in front of the monster. He instructed his clone in his mind to flee with the women and children, and it did so, but not before the demons noticed. He licked her with a root, made tongue and muttered, "Now all my hard-earned toys are gone. I guess I just have to use her." Naruto became even more enraged as he sensed Urza's disdain and dread. "But in order to accomplish that, I must kill you, so I wish you a good death, Demon Slayer," it added as a root sprang from the earth, impaling Naruto in the chest. Urza yelled, "No," as she was immobilized and attempted to approach Naruto. Watching Naruto plummet face first into his own blood, the demon laughed. As he tore off her armor, leaving her topless and causing tears to stream down her cheeks, he remarked, "Now for the funa right over his corpus." She mentally begged, "Please Naruto, don't leave, don't die." It grasped one of Urza's breasts firmly and said, "Your link is broken now, girl. Oh, how I love to take the mates of demon slayers who believe they are all powerful but in reality they are nothing." She whimpered, "I never got to say I loved you, Naruto." Her mate mark flared a vivid yellow when she stated that. As she turned to face Naruto, her eyes widened in surprise. Yellow energy whirled around his body as if it were throbbing. He pumped once more and murmured, "Proa protect." The devil now paused its activity to gaze at the blonde boy. "What is this?" it said fiercely, "He should be dead." Naruto pulsed once again as the yellow light began to form around him, and he said, "Ia Willa protect." Profile photo with Biju mode labeled. Naruto glanced at them and was raised by the yellow energy. The demon began to tremble in terror at the sheer might emanating from him and the sensation of its purity. Urza, on the other hand, was ecstatic that Naruto was still alive and couldn't stop smiling. His power also felt warm and compassionate rather than demonic. She would inquire later about the absence of his ears and tail, which was the sole abnormality. Naruto's eyes drooped at his sides as he gazed at the two lifeless eyes. His head soared up and he murmured, "Protect her." Before he could complete his warning, Naruto vanished in a flash and materialized in front of him with a clawed paw. "Don't try anything or she will." For a brief while, his arm disappeared, and then her monster was reduced to nearly nothing. But before it disappeared into thin air, it whispered, "How am I immortal?" Naruto took Urza in his arms and hugged her firmly. Naruto crouched down to her and murmured, "I will always protect you, Urza, even in death. I promised that, didn't I?" When Urza glanced up at him, the combination of his oath and power caused the remaining stings that bound her to Jell-El to fade. She kissed him after leaning up to him. Despite being straightforward, the kiss held everything together. It contained all of Urza's emotions for Naruto and her desire to be with him. In contrast, Naruto was ecstatic to be welcomed by his partner at his Lavera at last. They smiled when they broke. However, Urza began to panic and began frantically checking Naruto. She knew it had gone through his heart when he took a fist-sized root through his chest. She was shocked to see no wounds when she looked. When the mating ritual is completed, we are healed to the peak of health and brought to what is known as outprime ages, where we are both the most powerful and most likely to breed. Then we stay like that forever. It is meant to allow us to live together for a long time. Demon slayers and their mates live for thousands of years. It's best to look our best when we live that long, Naruto joked with her. Urza gave him a smile before realizing that she was essentially nude in his arms and that her top was still ruined. She was trying to hide her embarrassment by burying her head in Naruto's chest and letting steam escape from her ears. She changed back into her normal clothes and remained in his embrace. In order to reach their destination, Naruto fled at a rapid speed. Urza felt as though a little breeze was blowing over her as Naruto used a tiny bit of his newly discovered power to cloak her and shield her from the wind. They quickly caught up to his clone, who was waiting for them in the town. When it saw them, he gave him the bag containing their prize, which Naruto accepted, and it transformed back into magic to transform into Naruto. Naruto stood there normally, his ears and tails back, after releasing his new Biju mode. Urza was told by Naruto, "Let's go Homaheim." When Naruto used his seal at their house and teleported there in a burst of yellow light, she grinned at the nickname and planted a kiss on him. The flashback ended. With his teal on Q's lap and his arms now protectively encircling Urza, Naruto concluded, "And then we revealed that we were a couple the next day and it's been normal ever since." When the group heard this, they were stunned. The girls were crying because they thought it was a fantastic tale about a hero in shining armor. Naruto was a man among men. Elfman was yelling. While sobbing over a fantastic tale, Shadowgear was in a group hug. Q was giving Naruto and Urza firm embraces and admonishing them not to abandon her on a mission ever again. Mira was grinning broadly as she had managed to write all of it down in her book, filling roughly half of it. That was an amazing story, Naruto, and no doubt a true one at that. You two were really meant for one another. Now I can show this to Lucy when she gets back with Natsu for that mission they went on. Mira remarked as she placed the book on her torso. Naruto questioned in confusion, "Sure, but where did they go?" She questioned, "I think they went of that Demon Island mission." Why? And Naruto's eyes grew wide. The words, "Mira, that's AS class mission," came out of Naruto's terror. Now everyone was listening. Urza and Q both nodded as Naruto glanced at them. Naruto leapt from his seat and exclaimed, "We're going to save them now, and we'll be back soon." Urza and Q followed closely behind them as they fled.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.